Chapter 1078. Yes, that makes a lot of sense, Hui Yunfeng said. But if that's the case, the strongest expert in the newly established residence of 9 Supremes will most likely not be Yunyang, right? According to the information we have, that boy is a genius who ascended from the lower realm, but his cultivation base can't be too high. At the very least, he can't be a match for any of the Demiurge flawed 10. Based on this, doesn't that mean that Yunyang is working for someone else? I don't believe it. Of course not, Yu Bunning said. Generally, the leaders of sects with a long history are experienced and prudent, and they don't need to be outstanding in cultivation base. However, as the founder of a sect, he must be a brilliant man. How could he work for someone else? There must be something fishy about this. I agree with old Yu, Ding Byuk said. As a genius who ascended from the lower realm, Yunyang will never be so short-sighted that he will be used by others. Also, the reality is that Residence of 9 Supremes has broken through the encirclement of 500 sects and won the competition for the Celestial Luck Banner not long after its establishment. It is not easy to deal with them. The Demiurge flawed 10 alone cannot do this. With a deep look in his eyes, Hui Yunfeng said faintly, "It seems that this Residence of 9 Supremes is really interesting. There is a lot of suspense in this match." Yu Bunning chuckled and said, "Sure enough, the heavenly Tao is a good cycle. Heaven never forgives anyone. I'm about to get my 60 supreme grade stones." Hui Yunfeng's face darkened when he heard that, and he was no longer as enigmatic as before. In the field, Gao Danyun stroked his sword and said coldly, "Our sect belongs to the seniors, so I'll let you, the challengers, make the first move." Luo Dujiang let out a long laugh. Without saying a word, he took a big step forward, and as he did so, his body seemed to have grown twice its original size. Luo Dujiang's body was tall and large to begin with. His stature wasn't inferior to Gao Danyun's at all. In fact, he was much more muscular than Gao Danyun. Now that his stature had grown another size, every step he took was like a towering mountain. He charged forward with immense might. As he moved forward, a crisp sound rang out. The golden band on his head suddenly exploded, and his long hair flew in the air. After another 3 steps, he leaped up, and the broadsword in his hand suddenly turned into a bolt of lightning that struck down from the sky. Domineering. Wild. The aura was earth-shattering. At this moment, Gao Danyun only felt waves of coldness from the bottom of her heart, and her entire body felt as if it had fallen into a bone-piercing icy river. Her body was practically unable to move, and even her mind wasn't in control. She seemed to have stiffened. He felt that he was like a little lamb on the grassland, and his opponent was a ferocious beast that had unleashed all of its strength and was madly charging at him, fighting to its heart's content. His opponent's aura had completely locked onto him. There was nowhere to run. It was unavoidable. Like a bolt of lightning, the broadsword slashed down with the momentum of a thunderbolt. Gao Danyun was the strongest expert of Kangwu Union after all. He finally regained his senses at the last moment. With a fierce roar, he raised his sword with all his might to block the attack. Even as he fought back stubbornly, he retreated quickly. It was obvious that he was not optimistic that he could withstand the broadsword. At this moment, Luo Dujiang's broadsword slashed down in the most direct and head-on collision. However, when the two of them collided, there was only a soft clang. The sword of Gao Danyun, the strongest expert of Kangwu Union, was almost defenseless and split into 2. The blade, which seemed to be unobstructed, slashed down from the top of Gao Danyun's head all the way from his head to his crotch, and its momentum did not diminish. It went all the way to the ground, and only then did a loud rumble ring out. It was the sound of the saber's energy hitting the ground. The rumble echoed throughout the mountains and valleys. As for Gao Danyun, his thin body was evenly split into 2 halves by the broadsword and fell to both sides. He looked like 2 pieces of paper drifting helplessly in the air. The speed at which the battle ended was unimaginably fast and beyond everyone's expectation, causing the whole place to fall silent for a long time. Everyone, including Hui Yunfeng and the others, widened their eyes. Isn't this a battle between the strongest experts of both sects? Even if it wasn't a fierce battle that everyone thought they would see, they would at least fight for 3 to 5 rounds before one side would be defeated by the other side's stunning moves. At the very least, they would have to use some kind of strange secret technique that was unpredictable and out of everyone's expectations. In the end, although it was also unexpected, the battle was over before even one move was completed. But, isn't this a little too much of a joke? At the same time, everyone from Kangwu Union stood up abruptly when they saw the scene. Then, they froze and fixed their eyes on the battlefield as if they had seen a ghost. They had just heard their Grand Uncle Master say in a graceful manner, "You make the first move." Then, the opponent made his move, and the Grand Uncle Master was cut in two by the opponent. At this moment, not only were the spectators surprised, but even Luo Dejiang, the other person involved in the battle, was stunned. Blood was still dripping from the blade, but Luo Dejiang's expression was one of confusion. At the beginning of the battle, Luo Dejiang's mental pressure was probably caused by the crowd's talk about the outcome of the battle between the strongest experts, and there was no way to detect the opponent's strength here. Moreover, the opponent had acted like he was an expert from the beginning, standing there with an air of confidence and letting Luo Dejiang make the first move, as if victory was already in his grasp. This made Luo Dejiang feel even more pressure. Therefore, he had gone all out and tried his best to fight. But it never occurred to him that the strongest expert on the opposite side, who had the air of an expert, would be killed with just one slash. Was there a mistake somewhere in this? Luo Dejiang was still in a state of confusion until the cheers of his brothers and disciples behind him shook the heaven and earth. He still could not figure out what was going on, so he scratched his head subconsciously and murmured, It's over." Hui Yunfeng's voice, which sounded like he was suffering from constipation, rang out from above, "Residents of 9 Supremes wins the second match of the challenge." Hui Yunfeng's heart trembled as he spoke those words. Damn it, my 120 Supreme Grade spiritual jades are going to fly away now. Is this true? I can't believe this. At this moment, the chair under Hui Yunfeng's buttocks had been shattered by the strong mystical qi that overflowed from his body. Although it was still intact now, it was only supported by Hui Yunfeng's mystical qi. Once he stood up or withdrew his mystical qi, the chair would immediately crumble and turn into ashes. Hui Yunfeng's heart was full of anger at this moment. Kangwu Union, you are a sect with a celestial luck banner that has been passed down for more than 1,000 years. For more than 1,000 years, apart from the Wild Saber sect, no latecomer force can shake your foundation. Motherf *****. Why are you so lame? Are you trying to make me lose on purpose? Genius 1 second remember site address. Mobile version, M. Chapter 1079. A beam of light flashed. The two halves of Gao Danyun's corpse suddenly disappeared, and Gao Danyun, who had reverted to the appearance of a thin bamboo pole, reappeared on the battlefield. However, after he recovered, he was in a daze. His face was pale, and his eyes were dull. After a long time, his seemingly stiff body subconsciously trembled. Beads of sweat poured out of his forehead and dripped down. Until now, his mind and heart were still filled with that earth-shattering saber strike. What a domineering and shocking slash it was. It was an invincible and resolute slash that no one could resist. That was an extreme feeling of death. In the face of such a slash, he had no room to fight back. The defeat was not in vain. After a long time, Gao Danyun sighed in frustration and said, "I've lost." The moment he turned around, his calm demeanor vanished, and he staggered all the way back to his sect. Hong Changtian's eyes were filled with confusion as he watched his grand uncle master walk toward him like an old man in his twilight years. His body was stiff and his mind was blank as he said in a trembling voice, Grand Uncle Master. This, Gao Dunyan's face was pale. Shaking his head, he said in a low voice, my opponent's strength is far stronger than mine. It's an absolute suppression. It has nothing to do with any plots or schemes other than absolute strength. Just his momentum alone is enough to make me completely unable to resist. I've lost this match, and I'm convinced of my defeat. I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. Hong Changtian's eyes widened, and his eyes were filled with horror. The third match. Hui Yunfeng's voice came from above. His eyes shifted to Kangwu Union's side, and the other 8 sects also shifted their attention to them at this moment. The third match would be a life-and-death match for Kangwu Union. They had lost the previous 2 matches, and if they lost this one, they would lose the Celestial Luck Banner. Therefore, the decision was now on Kangwu Union's side. How to fight, who to send, whether to fight of formations or disciples, or to fight freely were all questions. If they won, they would not only win the match, but also have a chance to turn defeat into victory. If they lost, it would be a crushing defeat, beyond redemption. Hong Changtian's lips trembled. It was obvious that he had lost his mind. In the first 2 battles, he had lost unexpectedly, especially in the second battle, where he had lost miserably. Now that the third battle was about to begin, Hong Changtian was at a loss, unable to make a decision. Beside him, Gao Dunyan's face was still pale, but his eyes were flickering as he said in a low voice, now that our sect is in a critical situation, we must win a match to regain our momentum, and only then are we qualified to talk about the future. Although we have lost 2 matches in a row, I've found something in these 2 matches. Shi Wuchen, whom the opponent sent for the first match, is strong, but he is obviously far from Luo Dajiang's level. The gap is huge, and they can't be mentioned in the same breath. However, for the residents of 9 Supremes, this is a crucial opening match, yet they still pin their hopes on him. This almost shows that Shi Wuchen is the strongest fighting force in the residents of 9 Supremes after Luo Dajiang. Hong Changtian nodded slowly. According to common sense, this point was correct. Luo Dajiang is first, and Shi Wuchen is second. In other words, the cultivation base of the rest of the residents of 9 Supremes is even lower than Shi Wuchen. This deduction is valid, isn't it? Hong Changtian nodded again. In fact, although Jiang Jingfei lost the first battle, he had been suppressing Shi Wuchen throughout the entire battle. Everyone can see this for themselves. He only lost to his opponent scheming at the last moment. The outcome of the battle was only a matter of time, and Jiang Jingfei's true strength was superior. Yes, you can say that. Then, can we conclude that if Jiang Jingfei were to fight the others, he would definitely win? Of course. But Jiang Jingfei has already fought, and he can't fight again. Fortunately, the contestants can't fight again. If Luo Dajiang fought again, we would have lost for sure. Changtian, your cultivation base is about the same as Jiang Jingfei's, and your moves may be slightly inferior, but your character is more stable than his. In the third battle that is about to begin, we need to win, and we need to be steady. We must win. We must win. Changtian, why don't you propose a match of sect leaders? Gao Danyan said, their sect leader didn't fight in the first 2 matches, and you didn't fight on our side either. This match is basically a battle of life and death, so it's reasonable for the sect leaders of both sides to fight. After listening to Gao Dunyan's words, Hong Changtian's extremely uneasy heart finally calmed down. After thinking about it for a while, the more he thought about it, the more he felt that it made sense. Logically speaking, the first match and the match of the number 1 expert should be a match where both sides had to show their full strength, especially the first match, which was a battle that residents of 9 Supremes was determined to win. As the sect leader, if Yun Yang's cultivation base was stronger, how could he not fight? Although Shi Wuchen had won, the hardships he had gone through were still vivid in his mind, and he could not bear to look back on it. There was probably only one reason why he insisted on doing so. It was not that he did not want to fight, but he was not strong enough, and the odds of winning would be even lower if he forced himself to fight. Hong Changtian nodded, then stood up and said, "That's right. The third match is the key, and it's not suitable for anyone else to fight. Leader Yun, why don't you and I, as the leaders of our sects, have a match?" Yun Yang coughed and said faintly, "No matter who fights, the result will be the same. Residents of 9 Supremes will definitely win, and the celestial luck banner is already in the bag." Hong Changtian chuckled and extended his body, descending from the high platform like a cloud. His hands were clasped behind his back the entire time, and his face was filled with an amiable smile. "Then, please enlighten me, Master Yun. I am Hong Changtian, the leader of the Blue Parasol sect." Yun Yang stood up, seeming to hesitate for a moment before he said, "Sect leader Hong, if someone else were to fight this battle and you did not, even if you were to lose, you could still retain your dignity as a sect leader and stay. But, if you and I still lose after we fight, it will be a fatal blow to your disciples. Have you really thought about this, sect leader Hong?" Hong Changtian smiled. "If we lose the third match, the celestial luck banner is destined to leave Blue Parasol sect. What confidence do we have then? What harm is there in keeping my dignity?" But in his heart, he thought, Yun Yang is obviously afraid. Talking too much before the match, luring me to change my opponent or distracting me is not what an expert should do. Emboldened, he invited Yun Yang to fight again. "Please, Leader Yun." Yun Yang sighed and quietly flew into the arena. On the high platform, Hui Yunfeng was dumbfounded. Are the people of Blue Parasol sect crazy? The third match is the key one. Residence of 9 Supremes has just been established. Even if all the higher-ups are experts, their disciples can't be so strong. Judging by the number of disciples they have, there are only about a dozen of them, so it's only reasonable for them to send their disciples to fight and win the match. Why is the sect leader fighting in person? Ding Byuk and Yu Bunning were also puzzled by this, and they could not figure it out. As the founder of the sect, if his fighting strength was not strong enough, how could he have subdued experts like Luo Dajiang and Shi Wuchen? Was there something wrong with the head of Blue Parasol sect leader? Was he seeking his own death by helping the sect leader to make a name for himself? In the arena, Hong Changtian reached out and drew his sword, his face still full of smiles. "Please." With his hands empty, Yun Yang said faintly, "Sect leader Hong, please go first." Hong Changtian was no longer courteous. In fact, now was not the time to be courteous. His sect had lost 2 matches in a row, and no matter how calm he looked on the surface, his heart was already frying. He was only trying to maintain the demeanor of a sect leader and save face. At this moment, without any hesitation, he thrust his sword across the sky. A mountain of swords emerged, followed by a sword light that surged like the waves of a sea. 1,000 waves of mountains and seas. Hong Changtian's first move was an ultimate move. He and his sword seemed to have become one, and a mighty sword light swept over. On the opposite side was a mountain of swords and a sea of swords. Yun Yang, dressed in a purple robe, stood where he was. In the face of the oncoming attack, he only raised his right hand gently and spread his fair palm. His movement was so relaxed and casual that everyone could see it clearly. Not only did this Supreme Yun intend to fight with his bare hands, but he also acted so casually and carelessly. Isn't this a little too arrogant? Everyone stared at his hand eagerly. The moment his palm was opened to the extreme, it suddenly closed, and then there was a clang of a saber. In between Yun Yang's fair palm, a saber appeared out of thin air. It was a beautiful, oddly shaped spirit slash shrouded in purple qi. As soon as the spirit slash was in his hand, Yun Yang did not hesitate. He rose from the ground, wielded the saber with his right hand, and put his left hand behind his back. Then, in a graceful posture, he swung the saber down in an unusually straight line. The momentum of this strike was almost the same as Luo Dajiang's strike. The only difference between the two was that Luo Dajiang was wielding his saber with both hands and leaping forward with an air of superiority. Yun Yang, on the other hand, was waiting for the enemy to come before him before he swung his saber, looking even more leisurely. In terms of the prelude, the difference between the two strikes was huge. At the very least, Luo Dajiang's strike had a preemptive strike that would either succeed or die trying, while Yun Yang's strike seemed too casual and casual. However, the results of these two slashes were the same, shockingly the same. With a flash of saber light, Yun Yang turned around with his hands behind his back and returned to his original position. Hong Changtian, on the other hand, maintained his posture of thrusting his sword and stood motionless. With a soft crack, the sword in Hong Changtian's hand broke from the middle, and the 2.5-foot blade fell to the ground. Then, a thin bloodstain appeared on Hong Changtian's forehead. The bloodstain gradually expanded, covering his forehead in an instant. After a puff, blood spurted out from his hairline, and Hong Changtian's body was split into two with a crash. Probably because the strike was too fast and too sharp, the two halves of his body were still standing for a while before they fell to the ground because they could not maintain their balance. Yun Yang's casual and straight slash had split Hong Changtian's body into two just like Luo Dajiang's strike. Because the speed of the strike was so fast, Hong Changtian's body did not separate until Yun Yang had turned and walked hundreds of feet away. By the time Hong Changtian's body had fallen to the ground, Yun Yang had already returned to his position. His eyes were as calm as before, his handsome face devoid of any expression. The master of the Residence of Nine Supremes did not show any joy, as if everything that had happened was expected and within his control. There was nothing to be surprised about. On both sides. All the people from the 8 sects, including Hu Yunfeng and his 2 companions, were once again dumbfounded and speechless. Their mouths were agape, and they could not breathe for a long time. Everyone's eyes were filled with disbelief. One slash. Another slash. It was the end of another slash. Luo Dajiang's slash was full of dominance and power, while Yun Yang's slash was effortless, as if it came from the back of his hand. That kind of understatement, natural and smooth feeling could be said to be felt by everyone present. Yun Yang's saber appeared in his hand as if it had appeared out of thin air, and then disappeared without a sound. The impact of the scene was even greater. From beginning to end, this saber seemed to come from nowhere, and it also didn't know where it ended. Only a flash of saber light could be seen, and everything came to an end. The Residence of Nine Supremes wins the match of sect leaders. Hu Yunfeng's voice was hoarse and bitter. I've lost 3 matches in a row, and the match is over. My 120 supreme grade spiritual jades. I've lost so easily, this is 2F** King unreal. Have I really done too many wicked things? No way. It can't be. As the verdict was announced, Hong Changtian came back to life on the spot like the previous 2 people, but he stood there in a daze, speechless for a long time. His eyes were dull, and he looked like a walking corpse. Subconsciously, he took 2 steps forward, then suddenly burst into a howl and burst into tears. The celestial luck banner. It was gone. From now on, Kangwu Union no longer had the celestial luck banner, and it no longer had the capital to be proud of itself. It had become an ordinary sect in the martial arts world. If they wanted to take back the celestial luck banner, Hong Changtian closed his eyes, tears streaming down his cheeks. The Residence of Nine Supremes has won 3 matches in the lower-class Celestial Luck Banner Challenge and is promoted to the ranks of the lower-class Celestial Luck Banner sections. Hu Yunfeng's voice was extremely hoarse, as if he had just eaten shit. Congratulations to the Residence of Nine Supremes and sect leader Yun. Everyone looked at Yun Yang with a complicated look in their eyes. The same thought rose in the minds of everyone: the wolf is coming. The fighting strength of the residents of 9 Supremes seemed to be too terrifying. Hong Changtian returned to his seat in a daze as if he was sleepwalking. What greeted him was the dull and sorrowful eyes of everyone in the sect. "We've lost." Hong Changtian took a deep breath. "Let's go." Since they had lost, there was no point in staying here except to suffer more humiliation. "Sect leader Hong, please wait." Yun Yang's voice came slowly. "What else do you want to do?" Hong Changtian gritted his teeth. In the face of this young man who had killed the glory of Kangwu Union for 1,000 years, he did not even want to pretend the most basic demeanor. "We still have 2 matches to fight," Yun Yang said with a faint smile. "Don't we still have a match of formations and a match of disciples?" As soon as he said that, the people from Thousand Mountains sect, which ranked 8th, tensed up, their bodies stiffened. Even the people from Illusory Sword sect, which ranked 7th, shuddered. They could not believe that the residents of 9 Supremes was unwilling to give up and still wanted to win all the matches. What did they want to do? Their goal was obviously to take advantage of the bald lice on the head of the louse. It was obvious. And Chapter 1080. Hong Changtian glared at Yun Yang and said hatefully, "Yun Yang, don't go too far when we meet again in the future. I advise you not to go too far." Yun Yang replied coldly, "Too much? I only know that this is the rule, and I can't go beyond the rule. Residents of 9 Supremes has never taken the last place in the lower-class Celestial Luck Banner seriously. What do you want to do has anything to do with us?" Hong Changtian cried angrily. Yun Yang's face turned amiable as he smiled and said, "Has sect leader Hong lost his mind? Or are you deliberately playing dumb? Let me make it clearer. The rule is that if we want to continue the challenge, we need to win all 5 matches. Of course, we have to fight all 5 matches. If you don't want to fight, you can say it here and admit defeat in the remaining 2 matches. We need to win all 5 matches and continue the challenge." Hong Changtian said gloomily, "It's impossible for me to admit defeat." Yun Yang smiled and said, "If you don't want to admit defeat, then let's fight. What else is there to say?" Hong Changtian's eyes were bloodshot. When he turned his head to look, he saw that his disciples were all dejected and their eyes were blank. Everyone's spirit seemed to have disappeared with the consecutive defeats in the previous 3 matches. Are these still my disciples? They were clearly a group of walking corpses who had lost their minds and souls. Usually, out of their wits was just an adjective, but at this moment, it was the most appropriate description. Hong Changtian gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, "Residents of 9 Supremes insists on continuing the fight. Who will defeat their disciples?" All the disciples looked at each other, and no one dared to say anything for a long time. "Yu Qingfeng." Hong Changtian simply called out his name. Yu Qingfeng was the sect leader's disciple of Kangwu Union, as well as the #1 expert among its disciples. In the crowd, a handsome young man with a pale face looked up and said blankly, "The Celestial Luck Banner has been lost. What's the point of fighting or not, winning or losing this match? May I ask, sect leader, what's the point of this match?" Yu Qingfeng looked up with tears on his face. "Is it for the honor of our sect? Or is it for the survival of the Celestial Luck Banner? Or is it just to stop residents of 9 Supremes from winning all the matches?" Hong Changtian was enraged. "We are martial artists. How can we be afraid of battle? The opponent has already challenged us. Don't tell me that Kangwu's disciples don't even have the courage." With tears streaming down his face, he said, "This match is futile. I'd rather help residents of 9 Supremes and let them challenge for a higher position. The advancement of the Celestial Luck Banner's rank has been my dream for a long time. It's a pity that I haven't been able to wait for this opportunity after all these years." Since the residence of 9 Supremes has such a lofty ambition, I don't want to let others' dreams fall under my sword. My dream is already difficult to achieve. I hope that someone in the future can obtain this special honor. Before his voice had died away, Yu Qingfeng leaped into the ring and announced loudly, "I'm Yu Qingfeng from Kangwu faction, and I'm representing Kangwu faction in this disciple battle." Then, he straightened his body and shouted, "I admit defeat." Before his voice could fade away, Yu Qingfeng threw his head back and laughed wildly. "My long-cherished wish in my life is to participate in the battle of inner disciples as the representative of Kangwu Union. I want to fight for the promotion of our sect once in this arena. I didn't expect that when I finally stand here, all I want to do is admit defeat. But no matter what, this disciple will die here once." Yu Qingfeng choked with tears and snot. Then, he slashed the long sword in his hand across his neck. With a puff, Yu Qingfeng's head shot up into the sky, spinning in the air. It could be said that Yu Qingfeng had used all of his strength in this sword strike. The head flew more than 100 feet into the air and fell down after dozens of breaths. The moment it rolled on the ground, its white teeth opened and closed, and it bit the ground hard. At this point, the head finally stopped moving. However, this situation could be said to be extremely tragic. Everyone was shocked by this. The disciples of Kangwu Union were dumbfounded as they looked at the corpse that stood still in the arena. Hui Yunfeng sighed and said, "Kangwu Union has such a disciple, but it doesn't have a worthy elder. What a pity." There was a flash of light. Yu Qingfeng came back to life with his head back, but he stood there in a daze for a long time. Then, with a wild laugh, he walked toward his junior brothers and sisters without looking back. When he reached the crowd, he kept his head down and did not say a word, but tears kept flowing down his cheeks. Formation match. Hong Changtian was furious. "Everyone in Kangwu Union will fight with all our strength. We won't let residents of 9 Supremes win easily." Gao Danyun heaved a long sigh and said, "Our sect has no hope in a formation match. We admit defeat. Changtian, let's go. Don't make a fool of yourself here. Others can snatch the position of Supremes from us, and we may be able to snatch it back from them in the future. There's no need to be obsessed now." Then, he shouted, "Kangwu Union admits defeat. We won't start the formation match." On the high platform, Hui Yunfeng said, "Kangwu Union has lost 2 matches, and residents of 9 Supremes has won all 5 matches. Everyone in Kangwu Union, you can leave now," he said coldly. Yu Qingfeng suddenly stood up and said loudly, "This disciple wants to watch the match here and see how far residents of 9 Supremes can go. May I ask your permission, honorable emissary?" "Whether or not there will be a battle later is the Celestial Luck sect's business," Hui Yunfeng said coldly. "You have lost the Celestial Luck banner, so you are no longer qualified to stay here. What right do mere ants have to watch the battle between experts above the clouds?" With a wave of his sleeve, he said, "Leave now." Hong Changtian bowed his head and beckoned his disciples to leave. Everyone had gone far away, but Yu Qingfeng still stood straight in his place, staring at the flat square in front of him with a look of longing in his eyes. "Qingfeng!" Hong Changtian turned around and shouted. Yu Qingfeng closed his eyes, and 2 more drops of tears fell to the ground. Then, he turned and flew away without looking back. The people from his own sect didn't even stop when they passed by. They didn't even look at him, they just swaggered off. On the high platform, Hui Yunfeng said, "The winner of the Celestial Luck banner is blessed by the Celestial Luck banner. People of residents of 9 Supremes, please take your seats." The so-called seats meant that the people of residents of 9 Supremes could climb to the empty grandstand that originally belonged to Kangwu Union. Yun Yang waved his hand and said faintly, "Let's clean up." A stream of sparkling and bright water appeared out of thin air as if responding to a summon. It quickly washed all the seats clean. Let's go. Let's go to the place where we are temporarily. It's definitely not the place where we will stay. The disciples were extremely excited as they followed their masters forward. As they moved forward, they were full of spirit and pride. Wuxia and the others looked at the empty platform, and their eyes were red with envy. The celestial luck banner. We finally got it. Chapter 1081. When everyone was seated, the shadow of the celestial luck banner suddenly emerged over the residence of 9 Supremes. It flickered and then disappeared. The next moment, a pure black celestial luck banner with the words Residence of 9 Supremes appeared in the sky. As the banner fluttered in the wind, the shadow of a black celestial luck banner appeared over the heads of everyone in the residence of 9 Supremes. However, the strange phenomenon only lasted for a moment before it disappeared, leaving only the black celestial luck banner still fluttering in the wind over the residence of 9 Supremes. Yunfeng looked at the fluttering celestial luck banner from a distance and said faintly, "If the celestial luck banner falls, the title will be decided, and there will be another chance to challenge it 3 years later. Now that the celestial luck banner has not fallen, do you want to continue the challenge, Supreme Lord Yun?" "Yes," Yunyang said. Residence of 9 Supremes wishes to challenge Thousand Mountains sect, which has a higher position than the lower-class celestial luck banner. You have the record of winning all 5 matches, so you don't need anyone's permission to challenge it, Yunfeng said. Du Yangfan, sect leader of Thousand Mountains sect, do you have any objection to this match? This is the rule of the celestial luck banner, Du Yangfan said with a smile. Thousand Mountains sect will not be afraid of any challenge. In that case, let the match begin, Yunfeng said. But, as the challenged party, Thousand Mountains sect has the right to modify the order of the matches, Du Yangfan said. This is your right, and it should be so, Yunfeng said. We'll choose the match of disciples as the first match, followed by the match of backbone, and then the match of formations. The 4th match will be a match of free will, and we can choose any way we want. The 5th match will be the match between the strongest experts of our sect. What do you think, sect leader Yun? Do you have any objection? Yunyang said with a big smile on his face, "Whatever you say. The order of the matches has nothing to do with the grand decree. We, residents of 9 Supremes, will accept it." As soon as the decision was made, the people from the other sects on the side smiled at the same time. This sect leader of Thousand Mountains sect is quite cunning. After the first round of battle, residents of 9 Supremes had already sent out 3 people, and all of them possessed extraordinary strength. Among them, sect leader Yunyang was the strongest, followed by Luo Dejiang. Judging from the power these 2 men had shown, not only Thousand Mountains sect, but also several sects with lower-class celestial luck banners ranked at the bottom were no match for them. Therefore, as long as residents of 9 Supremes sent these 2 men to fight in the match of sect leaders and the match of the strongest experts in the 5 matches of the celestial luck banner, they would almost certainly win 2 matches. In this way, they had already won 2 out of the 5 matches. How could Thousand Mountains sect not be in danger? However, Du Yangfan was able to find an opportunity to win by following the established rules. First was Wuxia. Although his performance in the previous battles was not weak, it was not too good either. At least, there were many people in Thousand Mountains sect who could defeat him. And the first match, the match of disciples, was the key to Du Yangfan's plan. As far as the current situation was concerned, Wuxia was not the weakest in residence of 9 Supremes, but the group of disciples. There were only 10 of them in total, and half of them were Lolitas. It could be seen that the number of disciples in residence of 9 Supremes was very small. Although each of them seemed to have extraordinary aptitude, residence of 9 Supremes was just a newly established sect, and even Yunyang was not that young. Therefore, these children had only started cultivating for a short period of time, and their overall strength was bound to be weak. Therefore, The match of disciples was not a 50-50 chance of winning, but Thousand Mountains sect had a higher chance of winning. Moreover, as long as residents of Nine Supremes won this match, no matter what happened in the future, it would be disqualified from challenging the other sects, and all the higher-ranked sects would have to thank Thousand Mountains sect for buying them at least 3 years of time. It was a great favor that they had to accept. Moreover, Xiaofan had deliberately left the match of the strongest to the last, and replaced the match of sect leaders with the match of free will, which had never been heard of before. His ultimate goal was to cripple residents of Nine Supreme's strongest fighting force. If they won the first 3 matches, there was no need for them to fight anymore. Even though residents of Nine Supremes had 2 trump cards and 2 winning cards, it was useless. Of course, the main reason why Xiaofan was confident that he could win the first 3 matches was the third match of formations. As everyone knew, Thousand Mountains sect had a hidden formation that was invincible among those of the same level. It was also because of this formation called the 7 Stars formation that Thousand Mountains sect had established itself as the foundation of lower-class celestial luck banners. It could be said to be the foundation of Thousand Mountains sect. In this way, the match of formations was a sure win. The chance of winning the match of disciples was almost certain. As long as they won these 2 matches and defeated Wuxia by the experts of the sect, the result would be set. No matter how strong residents of Nine Supremes is, you can only wait for 3 years. Even if your disciples are strong enough to defeat us 3 years later, you will still be helpless in the match of formations. The higher-ranked sects will have to appreciate your kindness, but if you want to climb to a higher position, you will have to wait for 6 or 9 years. This is the biggest advantage of being the challenger and being the one who sets the rules. Xiaofan could almost see Yunyang and the people from the residents of Nine Supremes coming to him in high spirits and leaving with dejected faces, as well as the goodwill and benefits from the other sects with celestial luck banners. There were so many benefits that it was as if an immortal cake had fallen from the sky. Yes, it was the celestial flatbread. Only the celestial flatbread could describe the great benefits they would obtain after this battle. At this time, on the high platform, Xiaofan, who was trying to maintain his demeanor, finished giving instructions for the upcoming matches. Then, his face darkened because 2 creditors were waiting for him. Ding Byuk and Yu Bunning bowed at the same time and said, "Thank you for your generosity, big brother. We'll gladly accept the 60 pieces of supreme-grade spiritual jade." 60 pieces of supreme-grade spiritual jade for each of them was equivalent to 120 pieces of supreme-grade spiritual jade. No matter how rich Xiaofan was, he could not help but feel the pain of taking out 120 pieces of supreme-grade spiritual jade at once. The man rolled his eyes, and an idea came to him immediately. "You won the bet in the previous round, and that's not a lie. I'm willing to accept the loss, so I won't go back on my word. But, are you going to run away as soon as you win? You won't do that, will you? Now that residents of Nine Supremes is challenging Thousand Mountains sect, why don't we have another bet?" Ding Byuk and Yu Bunning sighed at the same time. This guy is clearly using this opportunity to make a comeback. If I win, I don't care if I'm a bastard or not. How do you want to bet, big brother? Are you still the banker? What are the odds? How can I always be the banker? Let's bet on the outcome of the match. Xiaofan gritted his teeth and said, "Since you are so united, you must be on the same side. Just tell me which side you want to bet on." After carefully calculating the strength of residents of Nine Supremes and Xiaofan's arrangement for the match, they turned to look at the few little disciples of residents of Nine Supremes. Among the disciples of residents of Nine Supremes, the one ranked first was a pretty little girl. She looked pretty and cute, but could she fight well? They were bound to lose the match of disciples. Chapter 1082. In the following battles of formations, Thousand Mountains sect had never lost in terms of battle formations, even when they fought against the few sects that ranked near the top of the lower-class celestial luck banners. As for the battles of the backbone forces and the battles of free will, the ambition of the wolves was still vivid in everyone's mind, and the odds of victory and defeat were obvious. We bet on Thousand Mountains sect. After all, they are an old sect. Ding Byuk and you could not make a decision immediately. Hui Yunfeng flew into a rage and shouted, "You can't bully Thousand Mountains sect. Could it be that all of you are bent on making me bankrupt? You two have no conscience. You just won over 100 pieces of top-grade spiritual jades from me, and now you want to take advantage of me. Do you have any brotherhood?" When the two of them heard this, they fainted at the same time. "You are still betting on the residents of 9 Supremes this round?" Hui Yunfeng said, "Each of us will bet 60 pieces of supreme-grade spirit jades. It's settled. I have the final say." The two of them were stunned on the spot. After a while, they said, "Big brother, you can't play like this. You're forcing the innocent to gamble. 1-2. Hui Yunfeng gritted his teeth. The two of them shook their heads repeatedly. "Not doing it, not doing it, not even if the compensation is 1-2. 1-3, that's my bottom line. If you still don't want to do it, then forget it," Hui Yunfeng said. "Humph. It seems that our friendship of several thousand years is over." His face was livid, and he was obviously very angry. Ding Byuk and Yu Bunning sighed helplessly. "What should we do now? He's obviously trying to win it back, who doesn't know that? Just tell us what we should do, all right?" Sigh. "Why don't we just leave it like this? It's better to let him win it back. Otherwise, when we go back, we'll have to look at his ugly face for decades. After all, we're together all the time and see each other all the time. All right, I was happy for nothing today. Everything about this big brother was good. He was loyal and always took care of his brothers, but he was too greedy." Their eyes were filled with spirit jades and precious materials, and anyone who saw them would immediately have a fever. After the two finished their discussion, they turned around and agreed, "Each of us will bet 60 pieces of supreme-grade spiritual jade. You must remember that the compensation is 1-3. "Of course." Hui Yunfeng immediately beamed with joy. Victory was already in his grasp. So what if the odds were 1-3? He was just putting on a show to save some face. "Big brother. If we win, you have to pay each of us 180 pieces of supreme-grade equipment." Ding Byuk was still worried and reminded him again. These words had to be said clearly. Otherwise, with boss's temper, he might just give you a 1-3 compensation ratio for your opponent. This was a conversation between the two of them based on their experiences, and it was a painful experience. If we want to gamble, we have to gamble on fairness. Why would I cheat you of your money? If Residents of 9 Supremes wins, I'll give each of you 180 pieces, and if it loses, each of you will give me 60 pieces of supreme grade. That's a deal. Yu Bunning once again clarified the main point, your 180 yuan must also be of the highest quality. You only said 180 pieces of low-grade spiritual jades. What if we win and you give us 180 pieces of low-grade spiritual jades? Isn't that fair? Hui Yunfeng looked embarrassed as he said, "Damn it. You don't trust me at all." Both of them stared at him as if they were used to it. Hui Yunfeng gritted his teeth for a while and said, "Fine, as long as Residents of 9 Supremes wins, you win, and I'll pay each of you 180 pieces of supreme-grade spiritual jades. But if Residents of 9 Supremes loses, you lose, and each of you will lose 60 pieces of supreme-grade spiritual jades. Is that okay? It's a deal. It's a deal." At last, the three brothers came to an agreement, and a new round of gambling officially began. Ding Byuk and Yu Bunning were still worried. Although both of them knew that the chances of them losing this battle were very high, it was not entirely hopeless. And if they won, once they won, their eldest brother, Hui Yunfeng, would go bankrupt. The 120 pieces of supreme-grade spiritual jades from the previous round, plus the 360 pieces of supreme-grade spiritual jades in this round, added up to nearly 500 pieces of supreme-grade spiritual jades, which was almost an astronomical fortune. At that time, what would happen to the two of them? Down below, Du Yongfan and Yun Yang were staring at the high platform. Both of their faces were full of doubt. What's wrong with these three stewards? Why do they always whisper to each other for a while before the match starts? This is our match, and it has nothing to do with you. You are just nominal hosts, okay? Why are you so hesitant? The first match was a match between disciples. Yun Yang turned sideways and gestured with a smile. Sect leader Du, I've just arrived here and know nothing about the mode of the match between disciples. May I ask how the match should be carried out? Should it be a one-on-one duel? Or should it be a one-on-one fight? Should it be a best of 5 or a best of 3? Or should it be a best of 7 or a best of 9? All of these are fine. You can just pick the one that you think is more likely to win. I really don't care. I can accept any of the above modes. Laughter rang out in an instant. It was obvious that Yun Yang was mocking Du Yongfan for not daring to fight him head-on, and for avoiding the strong and attacking the weak in the battle formation. Du Yongfan's face turned red instantly. He was, after all, a sect leader, and he cared a lot about his reputation. His voice turned cold as he said, Sect leader Yun, I think you're more inclined to that mode. We'll fight however you want. When has our Thousand Mountains sect ever feared any enemy? Yun Yang laughed and said, if that's the case, Yun Xiaofan. Yun Xiaoxin's heart was already itching. Upon hearing his words, she strode forward and said, yes, sect leader. Her voice was crisp, but there was a hint of childishness in it that could not be concealed. Go and have a good taste of the skills of the senior brothers in Thousand Mountains sect, so that you won't be arrogant in your own home and be a frog in a well, Yun Yang ordered with a straight face. Yes, sect leader. Yun Xiaofan was dressed in a snow-white dress, with only a light purple belt around her waist. Coupled with her petite body, she looked like a fairy floating leisurely in the clouds as she walked down the stage. Her features were picturesque, and her beauty was indescribable. All the people outside residence of 9 Supremes sighed in unison when they saw such a beautiful girl. Why is such a delicate little girl sent to fight? Judging from her appearance, she was probably not even 15 years old yet. What does residence of 9 Supremes mean by sending this little girl? Are they giving up on the first match? On the opposite side, a few disciples of Thousand Mountains sect looked eager to have a go. This kind of little girl is definitely the best. If he was the one fighting, he would definitely have to be merciful and not hurt him too much. In the process of sparring, he would have to show his magnanimity as much as possible. If he returned victorious, he would have to look good. Perhaps in the future, he. Let me go, master. Han Kongquan, the eldest disciple of Thousand Mountains sect, said with a serious face, residence of 9 Supremes is here for a reason, and I don't think they will send an ordinary disciple for no reason. They must have a purpose. We can't be deceived by their appearance. We can't underestimate the enemy in this match. What Han Kongquan said was reasonable. As the eldest disciple of the sect leader, he should be sent to fight the match. However, the other disciples twitched their mouths and thought, damn it, who are you trying to show off your sanctimonious face to? We're all on the same side, and we know each other best. Who doesn't know that you're a lecher? You can't wait to put every beautiful girl under your quilt, and now you're putting on such a righteous and fearless attitude. Who would believe that you're not trying to take advantage of them? Everyone looked at him with disdain. Well, let Kongquan fight then, Du Yongfan said. As you said, since residence of 9 Supremes has sent this little girl to fight, she must have a reason to do so. We can't be careless. We must win this match. Han Kongquan could not help but smile. Yes, master. I'll do my best and not fail you, he said cheerfully. This is a big win, he thought to himself. This match is indeed crucial. I'll make a name for myself in front of the heroes of the world, and I might even win the hearts of beautiful girls. At the very least, this little girl should be able to sense whether I've shown mercy or not. She's such a beauty, and she's not a fool. This little girl is really beautiful. If I can hold this little body in my arms and enjoy it at night, inch by inch, how tender she is. Han Kongquan's mind was filled with wild thoughts. Then, he strode up into the air with his hands clasped behind his back. His clothes fluttered in the wind as he drifted out in an extremely elegant manner. Han Kongquan's lightness skill was indeed extraordinary. His whole body floated forward slowly in the air as if there was something under his feet. His tall figure, black hair fluttering in the wind, a handsome face, a sharp nose, double eyelids, a square face, gentle eyes, and a black robe made him look even more elegant and graceful. Yun Yang praised, "This disciple of Thousand Mountains sect does have a good appearance and skin. What an elegant demeanor. What an outstanding talent." His voice was loud and clear, so loud that everyone could hear it. Han Kongquan, who was hovering in midair, naturally heard it as well. The young man's lightness skill was truly extraordinary. He turned around in midair and cupped his fists with a big smile on his face. "Thank you for the compliment, Master Yun. I'm Han Kongquan, and I hope you can guide me in the future." Yun Yang nodded slightly and said, "You're well-mannered and courteous. Not bad indeed. Sect leader Du, your sect leader's disciple, the successor of your legacy, is really enviable. He is truly extraordinary." Du Yangfan's face had turned dark. "Han Kongquan, what are you trying to do? If you want to fight, just fight. Why are you acting like a show-off? Is this a place where you can act cool? But now, before the fight even started, I've already lost a part of my mystical chi to act cool for no reason. Do you know what cultivation base your opponent has? How could you be so arrogant? This is simply..." When he heard Yun Yang's compliment, his heart was filled with mixed feelings. He could not tell what he was feeling, but in order to maintain his demeanor, he ground his teeth and said, "You're overpraising me, Master Yun. My disciple is just showing off his slight skill in front of an expert and making a fool of himself for no reason. Master Yun's disciple is the real pearl of immortal Du." Yun Yang said with a smile, "As the saying goes, even if one were to die under a peony flower, one would still be a romantic even as a ghost. I didn't expect sect leader to be someone who cherishes flowers." Du Yangfan almost coughed out a mouthful of blood. How could he not be so heart-wrenching? Du Yangfan almost coughed up a mouthful of blood. In the arena, Han Kongquan smiled and said, "If I heard correctly just now, this junior sister's name is Yun Xiaofan, isn't it? What a good name. She's a beauty in the clouds, beautiful, intelligent, and charming. What a good name, what a good name." Yun Xiaofan was stunned. What's wrong with this guy? Is he here to fight? Why, was he acting so strangely the moment he arrived? Both of us are enemies, so why is he acting so arrogant with his hands clasped behind his back? Is he really so confident? The little girl was only 13 years old now, so how could she know anything about the relationship between a man and a woman? Moreover, she did not understand that this guy was only using a trick to pick up girls. All she could think about was winning or losing, and how she would brag about it when she returned. Now that she saw him acting so casually, she could not help but overthink. "Yes, my name is pretty good, but your name, Han Kongquan, doesn't seem to be a good name," the little girl said. When Han Kongquan heard Yun Xiaofan's clear and tender voice and looked at her tender little face up close, his heart melted instantly. "What's wrong with it?" he asked. "Your name is Han Kongquan," Yun Xiaofan said. Does it mean that you are cold and lifeless? Because of your coldness, the whole herd of wild boars is empty. They are either frozen to death or caught and eaten. What's so good about this name? It's not auspicious at all. The little girl shook her head and looked at Han Kongquan sympathetically. Senior brother, you'd better go back and change your name. Even Han Er sounds better than Han Kongquan. The corner of Han Kongquan's mouth twitched as he said, Junior sister Xiaofan is so funny. Yun Xiaofan grew impatient. With a swish, she drew her sword and cried out, let's begin. With a smile on his face, Han Kongquan pressed his hand on the hilt of his sword and said, Junior sister Xiaofan, how old are you this year? What's wrong with you? Yun Xiaofan said angrily. Are you going to fight or not? Cut the crap. Han Kongquan said with a smile, what's the harm in talking first? It's not too late to fight later. Yun Xiaofan rolled her eyes and said, I don't have time for that. If you don't want to fight, I'll fight. Before her voice could fade away, she suddenly drew a huge sword flower with her sword, and her body flew up into the air. Abruptly, a burst of sword light shot out from the flower, turning into a gorgeous shooting star that streaked across the sky. The ray of light flashed and disappeared. Yun Xiaofan had already made her move, but Han Kongquan was still making his pose. His jade-like face, bright eyes, and the look in his eyes were extremely gentle and warm. Coupled with his fluttering robe, he looked like an immortal. Just his appearance alone would make ordinary girls and wives drool at the first sight of him, and it would not be difficult for them to throw themselves into his arms and sleep with him. In fact, it was with this appearance that Han Kongquan had won many beauties in the past. However, at this moment, Han Kongquan had miscalculated and lost the entire game. Baidu search for the novel website of Yunlai Pavilion, allowing you to experience the latest and fastest updates of the novel. Chapter 1083. Han Kongquan's current appearance was indeed very good, and he was invincible when it came to dealing with women, or rather, ordinary women. As the saying went, girls love to be handsome. However, the person Han Kongquan was facing now was not a woman at all. Not only was she not a woman, but she was probably not even a young girl. At best, she was a little girl. She did not seem to have the ability to appreciate as a woman, and she did not even have the taste to appreciate. All the postures Han Kongquan had made were nothing to Yun Xiaofan, or perhaps she was just being vigilant. The calmer and more relaxed he appeared, the more Yun Xiaofan felt that he was difficult to deal with. So, she raised her fighting spirit to 120%. Not only would she not be interested, but she would also go to an unprecedented extreme. The opponent might be a strong enemy she had never seen before, so she had to go all out and do everything she could. Based on this mentality, Yun Xiaofan took the fight seriously like never before. She struck immediately, gathering all the strength she had in her life and exerted extreme measures. Sword flower grows shooting stars, meteor destruction. The little girl had become one with her sword, and the moment she struck, she used her strongest move. It was also the first move of saber truth, merciless blade that Yun Yang had taught her before. She used her ultimate move. So, Han Kongquan was in a tragedy. In terms of his real cultivation base, he should be almost on par with Yun Xiaofan. Even though Yun Xiaofan was a little stronger, they were still at the same level in terms of overall evaluation. With such a cultivation base at such a young age, he could definitely be regarded as a young genius and a heaven's favored one. If he calmed down and fought with Yun Xiaofan, it would not be a problem for him to exchange 100 or so moves with her in order to determine the winner. Even with his much richer combat experience than Yun Xiaofan, it was still uncertain who would win in the end. This was also the reason why he looked so relaxed. His strong combat strength was the source of his confidence. He was even confident that there were few opponents who could be on par with him among the disciples of the same generation. Therefore, it was not wrong for Yun Xiaofan to feel that he was full of confidence, that victory was in his grasp, and that everything was under his control. However, he still made a very fatal mistake, underestimating the enemy. Han Kongquan was a genius, but he was too young and inexperienced. Moreover, Yun Xiaofan's appearance was too deceiving. At first glance, she looked like a gentle and weak little girl of about 13 or 14 years of age. She had a fair complexion, delicate and lovely, soft and tender, and a face full of childishness. She was extremely delicate, making one feel pity for her. Not to mention a young man like Han Kongquan, 9 out of 10 men in the pugilistic Jianghu would want to take the little girl home, love her, or keep her as a slave for a long time. Han Kongquan, who was a lecherous man on the outside but a lecherous man on the inside, was naturally not an exception. It could be said that the moment he saw Yun Xiaofan, he had already fallen in love with her. Otherwise, he would not have to make such a concave pose. But, just when he thought he was having a banquet with Yun Xiaofan and chatting with her, the girl, who was as beautiful as a pearl, suddenly turned hostile and attacked him. Han Kongquan had never seen such a horrifying move in his life. It was a move that he had never seen in his life. As the sword light flashed, Yun Xiaofan's figure was nowhere to be seen. Han Kongquan's hand was still on the hilt of his sword, but he did not draw it out. He was still posing there, looking around with great interest. Slow. In the face of the approaching force, he only had time to let out a cry, but Yun Xiaofan had already rushed past him with her sword. Yes, it had charged through his body. The tip of the sword touched Han Kongquan's body first, piercing and breaking it. Perhaps it was because Yun Xiaofan's attack was so fierce and fast that she took the opportunity to rush past Han Kongquan. Han Kongquan was still hovering in midair, still maintaining his elegant posture. However, the expression on his face had turned into one of disbelief and fear. There was a large hole in his chest and abdomen. It was called a large hole, but it was actually only the size of a bowl. It was round and transparent, and from here, one could see Yun Xiaofan, who had just rushed past him, rushing forward in the air uncontrollably in her white dress. The girl was still beautiful, thin, and petite, but now, no one would think that she was weak and easy to bully anymore. The result of the attack was clear. Han Kongquan's vision darkened, and as he fell to the ground, he glanced at her, whether intentionally or unintentionally, and a strange thought came to his mind, what a slender waist. Then, the man who had fallen to the ground no longer felt anything. On the other side, the face of Du Yongfan, the sect leader of Thousand Mountains sect, was as dark as the bottom of a pot, and he looked like an active volcano that was about to erupt. On the other side, Yun Yang sighed and said faintly, "What a pity. Elder brother Han is the best in terms of character and demeanor, but he has underestimated his enemy too much. If he hadn't underestimated his opponent, the outcome of this battle would still be uncertain and difficult to predict. What a pity, what a pity. It would have been better if Yun Yang had not spoken." As he said that, Du Yongfan felt that the breath in his stomach was about to rush out. If this breath really rushed out of his stomach, he was afraid that he would immediately explode like a barrel of gunpowder. At the same time, Han Kongquan had regained his senses and was full of energy. With a blank face, he looked down at his chest, then at Yun Xiaofan, who had gone back to report happily to her master. She was chattering and gesticulating about something in front of her master. The battle was over. But, Han Kongquan suddenly felt a towering sense of anger and humiliation that he had never felt before. He stomped his feet and roared, "B***tch. How dare you use a honey trap on me? Come out now. Come out now. I'm going to cut you into 1,000 pieces." He roared and yelled as if there was no one else in the arena, his face filled with anger as he was humiliated. Then, he heard a voice on the high platform that was several times angrier than his, bellowing, "The outcome has been decided. Get out of here now." It was Hui Yunfeng's voice. At this moment, Hui Yunfeng's anger was overflowing, and he could no longer suppress it. If he were not limited by his status as the steward, he might have skinned this Han Kongquan alive. Damn it! You didn't do it on purpose, did you? You actually wanted me to spend an astronomical amount of supreme-grade spiritual jade on purpose, didn't you? How dare you underestimate your enemy in the battle of the Celestial Luck Banner, which concerns the future of the two sects? How dare you have the guts to have lust in such a serious occasion? You're more than just lustful. How long have you not seen a woman? How thirsty and lonely are you? Let me ask you, how many F*King lifetimes have you not seen a woman? How many F*King lifetimes have you not seen a woman? How could someone be pierced through the heart by a sword while standing still? What the F*ck? Chapter 1084. Han Kongquan was still fuming with rage. Just as he was about to argue, a figure suddenly appeared behind him. Then, the man kicked him and said in a furious and aggrieved tone, "Go. Go to hell." It was none other than Hui Yunfeng. Han Kongquan was kicked flying into the air and smashed into the high platform of Thousand Mountains sect with a loud bang. No one knew whether it was because of the sudden turn of events that the crowd could not react in time or because Han Kongquan was not very popular, but no one picked him up. He smashed hard on the steps and rolled down. Then, he screamed like a pig being slaughtered. The crowd was shocked and stunned. Who is this? How dare he beat someone up? Isn't he looking down on everyone here? And why is he so angry and aggrieved? Why are you so angry and aggrieved? Who is he? Everyone looked over and saw Deacon Hui Yunfeng standing proudly in the middle of the arena. Looking around, he said in a cold voice, "Attention, everyone. Once the outcome of the battle is decided, you must leave the arena immediately. Don't delay, and don't speak rudely. If anyone violates this rule again, not only will the person be expelled from the arena, but his sect will also be expelled from the arena." As soon as he said that, all the people present kept quiet out of fear. It turned out that the deacon had lost his temper. Obviously, Han Kongquan's behavior just now had crossed the deacon's bottom line. They had to take it as a warning. In fact, it made sense. Han Kongquan's behavior just now was really infuriating. No wonder he had provoked the deacon to attack him. However, many people had more doubts in their minds. Over the years, as the deacon of the Golden Palace, Hui Yunfeng has come to preside over the competition several times, and it's not like he has never lost his temper before. Not only did he lose his temper this time, but he also cursed someone. This is a little unusual. After saying that, Hui Yunfeng went back without saying another word. But, the people of Thousand Mountains sect felt ashamed. How could there be any glory in this? Their eldest senior brother, eldest disciple, and eldest grand disciple had all been defeated, and they were cursed by the deacon, who had almost brought disaster to their entire sect. This matter was simply, Han Kongquan calmed down and came to Du Yangfan timidly. But before he could say anything to defend himself, Du Yangfan's face darkened and he growled angrily in a low voice, "Get the hell out of here." Beside him, Yun Yang said amiably, "Sigh, sect leader Du, it was only a moment of carelessness on your disciple's part just now. Why must you be so harsh? Young people are inevitably lacking in experience. After today's battle, they will definitely be more perfect. Taking 10,000 steps back, your disciple's strength is not weak at all. At least, in my opinion, he is even stronger than my disciple. This battle is really not a crime of fighting, it is an unfair victory. If they were to fight again, it is still unknown who would be the winner." At this point, he took the opportunity to nod at Han Kongquan and said, "Brother Han, please don't take it to heart. Victory and defeat are common in battles. You didn't lose this battle because of your strength, but because of your lack of experience. It's a great lesson for you. At this moment, Du Yongfan felt a sweetness in his throat, and he nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. Victory and defeat are commonplace? How can the battle in your family have anything to do with the ranking of the celestial luck banners? Also, I don't think I'm seeing things. How old are you? It's still uncertain whether you're as old as that disappointing Han Kongquan. Don't you have the cheek to lecture me like an old man? The second match. Hui Yunfeng's voice was filled with indescribable gloom. It was like a volcano that was about to erupt. I'm so aggrieved. I'm even more aggrieved than Thousand Mountains sect. Thousand Mountains sect can still vent their anger, but I. Sect leader Yun, what do you think of the second match? Du Yongfan looked at Yun Yang. The second match was supposed to be a match between the backbone. But now, Du Yongfan wanted to change it to a match of formations. It was obvious that Han Kongquan's defeat had disrupted his plan, and he urgently needed a victory to stabilize the overall situation. He had to win the second match cleanly. Otherwise, the next 3 battles would all be fierce battles, and the kind where the chances of winning were slim. Yun Yang smiled gently and said, "As you wish. Didn't I say before that we'll fight according to sect leader Du's order?" His words were still conventional, but the sarcasm in his voice was thick and undisguised. As a sect with a higher ranking than residents of 9 Supremes, Du Yongfan's Thousand Mountains sect had devised a more favorable order of battle for them at the last minute. Although it was not very upright, it was still within the rules. But now, they had changed their order at the last minute, which was tantamount to changing one's order in the morning. It was an unbearable behavior, and there was no room for argument. Du Yongfan's face heated up. He turned to look at Yun Yang and pretended to be generous as he said, "Sect leader Yun, my sect has 7 people in total, which is a little too much. I hope you can forgive me. I'll apologize in advance." Yun Yang flashed a gentle smile. "Not at all, not at all. The art of a battle formation is to integrate everyone's combat power to fight. Your sect's battle formation only has 7 people, how could it be more? My residence's battle formation is made up of 9 people. I should be the one to apologize and apologize." Du Yongfan was taken aback. 9 people? F***ck, you have more people than us. Do you want to send all of them? His expression changed abruptly as he said, "The number of people does not mean the strength of the fighting strength. The foundation of a battle formation depends on the cooperation." Yun Yang nodded slowly and said, "Sect leader Du is right. You've hit the nail on the head." Du Yongfan's face turned blue when he heard Yun Yang's words. He turned his head and said, "7 disciples, step forward." At Du Yongfan's order, the 7 young disciples of Thousand Mountains sect, led by Han Kongquan, took a step forward in unison. Yun Yang also turned to look at them and said, "Except for Lu Chongman, the others take a step forward." Yun Xiaoxin, Sun Mingxiu, Hu Xiaofan, Bai Yexing, and the other 8 disciples stepped forward at the same time, leaving Lu Chongman alone. Yun Yang glanced at them and said, "Sun Mingxiu, coordinate with us. Bai Yexing, attack freely. Yun Xiaoxin, guard the 5th earth position and resist all the enemy's attacks. Go." "Yes." The 9 disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes answered in unison and flew down together. Each of them was dressed in white, and as they flew out together, they floated down like a large group of white clouds. Only the purple belt around Yun Xiaoxin's waist was the most dazzling, like a red dot in a sea of greenery. Han Kongquan stared at Yun Xiaoxin with hatred in his eyes, which were filled with the cruel green of a hungry wolf. Without waiting for the sect leader's order, he waved his hand and flew down with his junior brothers, making no secret of his desire to start the battle as soon as possible. 7 stars formation. Han Kongquan cried out. As soon as the 7 disciples landed in the field, they had already lined up in the position of the Big Dipper. Han Kongquan's cultivation base was second to none among them, and he was in the position of Migres, the leader of the 7 stars. As soon as he got into the formation, he drew his sword and prepared to fight. Obviously, he had learned his lesson from the fight just now. This time, before the battle began, he had his sword in his hand and dared not to be careless anymore. His killing intent was revealed. Killing formation. Han Kongquan looked sideways at Yun Xiaofan and whispered. Chapter 1085. When they heard Han Kongquan's words, a fierce gleam flashed across the eyes of the other 6 people. The study of formation Tao was divided into different categories, each with its own ingenuity. Generally speaking, it could be divided into maze formations, trap formations, and killing formations. The first type of maze formation was mainly used to block the target's 5 senses, and its lethality was relatively weak, so it was usually only used to block the enemy's way. The second type of trap formation was much more lethal than maze formation, and it used ingenious formations to enhance one's fighting strength while trapping and sealing the enemy. However, since this type of formation was called trapping, it naturally focused on trapping. The battle might be dangerous, but the goal was to win. When the outcome was clear, they would stop. This was also the common coping pattern used by Han Kongquan and others in the past. As for the third type of killing formation, it was the formation that was deduced to the most extreme degree. With just a thought, it was filled with murderous intent. It was a situation where there was no chance of survival. Even though the Battle of the Celestial Luck Banner had the magical effect of resurrection, anyone who suddenly experienced death would suffer a heavy blow to their mind. Many of those who had endured the blow would have their state of mind weakened, and their future cultivation path would be more bumpy and bumpy. This was especially true for the younger generation of disciples. No matter how talented they were, their state of mind was inevitably much inferior to that of adults. Many of them died prematurely and had no successor in their cultivation path. Therefore, unless it was necessary, the disciples of Thousand Mountains sect, who were known for their formation Tao, rarely used killing formations, lest they could not hold back and make enemies for no reason. What Han Kongquan said just now was equivalent to using this formation to kill the younger generation of disciples of residents of 9 Supremes. His intention was vicious. Yun Xiaofan, who was on the opposite side, cried out, "Battle formation of 9 peaks." As soon as Yun Xiaofan and the others landed on the ground, they quickly divided into 9 positions. The formation that the disciples of residents of 9 Supremes had arranged was obviously very different from the regular formation. Except for Sun Mingxiu, who was in the center, the other 8 formed a circle, with Yun Xiaofan in the lead, facing the opponent's 7 stars formation. Bai Yexing was 1 position away from Yun Xiaofan, and Hu Xiaofan was 1 position away from him. If there were only 3 of them, they would form a triangle. Unlike Han Kongquan's order in a low voice, Yun Xiaofan shouted with a murderous aura, "Battle formation of 9 peaks, killing formation." The little girl was full of murderous intent. "I'm invincible. Leave no one alive. Here." The 8 junior brothers and junior sisters answered in unison. Yun Yang, who was watching the battle from the spectator stand, was exasperated. What did the little girl mean by that? Invincible as long as I'm here, no one shall be spared? What do you mean by, "I am invincible"? On the other side, the faces of the 7 disciples of Thousand Mountains sect darkened. "We were only secretly arranging it, but you guys were so brazen." Han Kongquan furiously pointed his sword at them and said, "Spare no one? Not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. Let's see who gets annihilated." Almost at the same time, Yun Xiaofan pointed her fair and tender little finger impatiently and said, "Kill them." The 2 battle formations suddenly collided with each other in the next moment. It was also at this moment that Sun Mingxiu, who was surrounded by the 8 disciples of the 9 Supremes, suddenly let out a long hum, "Birds of the same breath and branches, a cold sword." Before his voice had died away, his hands had already stretched to the left and right. At the same time, Bai Yexing and Hu Xiaofan each took one of Sun Mingxiu's hands, while the other hand was placed on the shoulder of another junior brother next to him, while Qing Jiejia put one hand on Yun Xiuxin. Yun Xiuxin let out a fierce cry and thrust out her sword without moving. Han Kongquan, who had been fighting with formations for a long time, did not know that his opponent was using a gathering technique. He snorted disdainfully and said in a deep voice, "Stars scatter." The 7 stars battle formation regrouped. It seemed that the 7 people were running in all directions in a disorderly manner, but in fact, they had dodged the sharp edge of the residence of 9 Supremes formation and trapped the 9 disciples in their own formation. The so-called running in all directions was just a camouflage to regroup the formation. Your so-called drunken maniac battle formation only has one tip. How can it deal with the siege of 7 of us at the same time? In the formation of 9 peaks, Sun Mingxiu's eyes flickered with a faint smile as he said, "Sweep all before you." At the same time, the 8 disciples withdrew their hands, which were connected to the other disciples. However, this time, he didn't just pull his hand back. At the instant he pulled his hand back, he struck out again. All of them struck out with their palms, but the power of these 8 palms was extraordinary. Such a powerful palm strike should not have been unleashed by a group of junior disciples. How could this be possible? The people from various sects were all experienced and knowledgeable, and their eyesight was sharp. They saw through the momentum in an instant, but they were puzzled. No matter how profound the formation was and how it could greatly increase everyone's fighting strength, there was still a limit to each person's true strength. How could the attacks of the 8 disciples of residents of 9 Supremes be so powerful? They were several times stronger than their own strength. How could they know that the key to this change was Sun Mingxiu, who was in the center of the 8 disciples? At this moment, Sun Mingxiu looked normal and stood still, but if one took a closer look, one would find that there was steam rising from his head, and his face was pale and bloodless. It turned out that in that moment just now, he had borrowed all his mystical qi. That was why Yun Xiuxin and the other 7 disciples, with the added power of the formation, could unleash a palm strike that was far beyond their limit. The attack just now had shocked everyone, but it had also turned Sun Mingxiu into an empty shell. However, his effort was enough to lock down the outcome of the battle. At the right moment, the 8 disciples around Sun Mingxiu struck out with their maximum strength, and with the 50% increase in strength from the 9 peaks formation, they attacked the opponent's 7 stars battle formation. Yun Xiuxin took the lead and confronted Han Kongquan. Their swords collided violently. Han Kongquan was about to shout to show his existence and increase his momentum, but he felt the power of the attack from the opposite side pressing down on him like an avalanche, and the shout was forced back into his stomach. Knowing that the situation was not good, he mustered all his mystical qi to resist the attack with all his might. If he, who was in the main position, could not suppress the formation and took a step back, the 7 stars battle formation would be completely defeated. His response was undoubtedly correct, and he had given it his all without the slightest bit of negligence. However, what he was facing now was a tyrannical power that exceeded his limits. Even if he tried his best to hold on, and even pushed back, blood was already gushing out of his 7 apertures. His situation was indescribably bleak. However, compared to the other members of the 7 stars battle formation, Han Kongquan was in the best condition. The other members of the formation were also facing the same level of power, and their fighting strength was obviously not as strong as Han Kongquan. Although Han Kongquan could still put up a desperate fight, the others did not even have the chance to put up a desperate fight. As a result, muffled grunts rang out incessantly in the surroundings. In just one blow, the 7 stars battle formation, which was full of confidence and claimed to be invincible, had suffered an unprecedented blow. Chapter 1086. The disciples of residents of 9 Supremes did not follow up with another attack. Instead, they retreated together, holding their swords in one hand to guard against the enemy's counterattack while putting the other hand on Sun Mingxiu. Then, Sun Mingxiu let out a long chant and said, "The bright moon of the 5 lakes waves together." Before his voice had died away, Yun Xiuxin, Bai Yexing, Hu Xiaofan, Duan Mufeng, and Lin Xiaoro suddenly crossed paths and pounced in the opposite direction of where they were. In an instant, they had changed their targets and launched a new wave of attacks. Boom! Boom! 5 loud bangs rang out one after another. Through the first wave of battle, although Sun Mingxiu had exerted his qi to the limit to enhance the combat power of his senior brothers and junior brothers and was temporarily exhausted, his eyesight was not inferior at all. He immediately judged that among the 7 stars battle formation, Han Kongquan, who was in the main position of Migres, and another disciple of Thousand Mountains sect named Yu Heng were the strongest. Although he had used Yun Xiuxin and Bai Yexing, the strongest disciples on his side, to attack them separately and gain some results, they were not able to achieve a full victory. Therefore, in the second round, they avoided the strong and attacked the weak, using the 5 stronger disciples on their side to attack the 5 weaker disciples on the other side. As for the 7 stars battle formation, because of the interconnecting effect of the formation, when one person was attacked, the others would share the burden and distribute the damage. In an instant, all 7 people in the 7 stars battle formation coughed up a mouthful of blood without exception. They had overloaded themselves, and once the formation backfired, all 7 of them would be injured at the same time. However, the advantages and disadvantages of the 2 waves of attacks were clear at a glance. The disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes used the attacking will of Sun Mingxiu, who was sitting in the middle, as the starting point. Their words were followed by their movements, and they attacked swiftly. Not only did each strike contain a force that was several times stronger than their own, but they also targeted the opponent's weak points and succeeded one after another. Although the 7 stars battle formation had its marvelous effect, it was too shabby to withstand a single blow from the residents of 9 Supremes' 9 Peaks formation. The 7 people who suffered the backfire of the formation staggered back at the same time. Han Kongquan roared desperately, trying to turn the tide, but it was already too late. It was just like a cornered dog jumping over a wall and talking nonsense. Sun Mingxiu stood up with lightning in his eyes and shouted 3 times, "Unify Jianghu and change the world." Then, the 9 of them quickly adjusted their formation and stood side by side. At the same time, they used the body and sword fusion technique. At this moment, the 9 sword lights were like 9 dragons swallowing water, shooting straight up into the sky for 500 feet. This kind of power could only be unleashed by a saint-level cultivator. Now, however, the sword lights of the 9 disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes were the same, advancing in unison. It was like 9 saints had attacked at the same time, and their momentum was shocking. This attack had combined the strength of all 9 people that formed the 9 Peaks Grand Formation into one spot, and then doubled their battle prowess. Only then was it able to form such a terrifying might. In the face of this wave of tyrannical attacks, the miserable cries from the other side had only just sounded before they disappeared. Only flesh and blood scattered all over the sky. On the other hand, after killing all their enemies, the 9 disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes rushed out of the square's battle formation at top speed with the momentum of the body and sword fusion technique. Along the way, they flew 3,000 feet across the sky and returned to the grandstand of the residents of 9 Supremes. The 9 disciples bowed at the same time and said respectfully, "Fortunately, we didn't fail you." There was only scattered flesh and blood on the ground. There was not even a single intact bone, and even the head had been smashed into pieces. Everyone was silent for a long time. All the people from the 8 sects were shocked by the joint attack of the 9 disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes and the brilliant sword light that shot 500 feet into the sky. The level of a saint. The 9 Peaks Grand Formation could actually elevate the strength of the 9 disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes to the level of a saint. Even Thousand Mountains sect, which had always been known for its formations, had ended up like this. How could the other sects deal with it? Compared to the Nine Peaks Grand Formation, the Seven Stars Battle Formation was like the difference between heaven and earth. Someone murmured under his breath, "We are of the same breath and branch, a cold sword that sweeps through all directions, the bright moon of the 5 lakes waves together, unifying the martial world and changing the world." Residents of Nine Supremes. Residents of Nine Supremes. Xiaofan's face was as pale as a dead man's at the moment. The other disciples of Thousand Mountains sect were also disheartened, as if they had lost their parents. They no longer looked as if everything was under their control. They had lost again. They had lost again. And they had lost in the battle that they were most confident of winning. In the field, the 7 disciples of the 7 Stars Battle Formation had recovered because of the strange phenomenon, but their faces were pale and their eyes were full of fear. 2 or 3 of them were even trembling. The reason was that the battle just now had completely scared them out of their wits. This was hell. This was not the mortal world. Among them, the one who had the greatest reaction was none other than Han Kongquan. In the short span of an hour, he had died twice. Although it wasn't a true death, the feeling of death was no different from reality. There wasn't the slightest bit of falsehood. His heart was filled with indignation and unwillingness after he was killed in the first battle. After he recovered, all he could think of was to find Yun Xiaoxin for revenge. Although his state of mind was unbalanced, not only was his fighting strength not damaged, it had even become stronger because of his anger. However, the subsequent development was beyond his expectation. The 7 Stars Battle Formation, which he thought was his trump card, was completely crushed by his opponent. In just 3 waves of attacks, all of them were wiped out. He had thought of killing his opponent, but instead, he was killed by his opponent. The gap between the two was so great that it could not be described with words. At this moment, he stood in the field in a daze, his body trembling, his eyes unfocused and empty as he murmured, "I'm dead. I'm dead again. I'm dead again." Suddenly, he screamed and ran back with his hands over his head. "I'm dead, I'm dead. I'm dead again. I'm dead again." After losing his state of mind several times, he was so scared that he lost his mind. Xiaofan heaved a long sigh and slapped Han Kongquan on the back, knocking him out immediately. Then, he handed him over to the people behind him, turned around, and said bitterly, "We've lost the match of formations." On the high platform, Hui Yunfeng's voice was also mournful as he said, "Residents of Nine Supremes won the second match." Then, there was another long silence. Except for residents of Nine Supremes' own people who were celebrating, none of the other sects spoke a word. Even Golden Cauldron sect, which ranked first, was looking at residents of Nine Supremes with fear in their eyes. They had once thought that the opponent's weakness was not a weakness, but a very powerful trump card. Almost everyone felt a chill creeping up their backs. The 9 disciples of residents of Nine Supremes were either little girls or boys, and only a few of them could be called teenagers. Their age of cultivation was destined to be short, so their real strength was naturally not very high. No matter how talented they were limited by their age of cultivation, and there was a limit to their strength. However, the residents of Nine Supremes' 9 Peaks Formation could forcibly raise their strength to the Saint Realm. The true might of this grand formation was obvious, and it was truly shocking, terrifying, and astounding. Then, all the sects came to a decision. Now, the residents of Nine Supremes has even made up for its only shortcoming. If they climb all the way up later, when it's our turn to face them, no matter what we do, we must not fight them in formations. Chapter 1087. Not only would they be courting death, but they would also ruin the future of their disciples by engaging in a battle of formations. The Thousand Mountains sect was a clear example of what had happened to them. Xiaofan sat in a daze, feeling that his mind was completely blank. Next to him, Yun Yang looked over with a smile and said, "Sect leader Du, it's time for the third match. How do you want to fight? Whether it's a battle of the backbone, a battle of free will, or some other tactics, Residence of Nine Supremes is ready." Du Yangfan didn't know why, but when he heard these words, he actually shuddered, and his hair stood on end. It was a fact that they had been defeated and discouraged, but the battle of the celestial banners was not over yet. It was clear that Residence of Nine Supremes intended to continue, and it was not only to defeat Thousand Mountains sect, but also to achieve a higher goal. But, how were they going to fight the third match? Now, the whole Thousand Mountains sect had clearly realized a problem. Residence of Nine Supremes was really stronger than Thousand Mountains sect, and it was much stronger, even superior in every aspect. Now, the two matches they had lost had proved this fact. The third match would undoubtedly become a battle of life and death. If they lost again, it meant that Thousand Mountains sect would fall to the last place among the lower-class celestial luck banners. It was a result that Thousand Mountains sect would not be happy to see, and it was even more difficult for them to accept. After all, for Thousand Mountains sect, the worst-case scenario would be 6 or at least 3 years later before their ranking would drop. But now, it was right in front of them. They could not afford to lose this match. Even if they could not avoid defeat, as long as they won this match, Residence of Nine Supremes would lose the qualification to continue challenging the higher-ranking sects with the celestial luck banners because it was not a complete victory, and they would be able to earn the final benefit. Unfortunately, the thoughts in his mind were one thing, and the reality was another. How could he win the third battle? How could they ensure their victory? Du Yangfan frowned, his mind in a mess. He turned to look at the black-clothed man beside him, who had been silent all this time. The man was his senior brother, Ong Ping, the first martial arts genius that Thousand Mountains sect claimed to have seen in 1,000 years. Not only was his cultivation base 2 levels higher than Wuxia's, but he was even stronger than the elders in Thousand Mountains sect who had been cultivating in seclusion. Without a doubt, he was the strongest expert in Thousand Mountains sect. In other words, Yang Ping was the strongest trump card of Thousand Mountains sect, their ultimate trump card. In the past, he had purposely concealed this person's strength in case he needed to act at the critical moment to turn the tide of the battle. Could it be that he had no choice but to act now? Senior martial brother Yang, Du Yangfan sighed softly and said, "In the next match, the match of the backbone, how about you fight? Thousand Mountains sect can't afford to lose again. We must at least win this match." Yang Ping was expressionless. He simply said, "Okay." Then, he stood up. Du Yangfan's spirits lifted as he turned to Yun Yang and said, "In the third match, the match of the backbone, my senior brother Yang Ping will fight. What do you think, Master Yun?" Du Yangfan had to admit that Du Yangfan was the leader of a sect after all. Even though the enemy was already at the gate of the sect and the situation was full of crisis, he was still clinging to the last straw and trying to maximize the efficiency of this straw. There was a reason why Du Yangfan took the initiative to introduce Yang Ping's identity and seniority. Everyone present knew that Residence of Nine Supremes was seeking to win all 5 matches, and there was no doubt about it. On the other hand, most of the strongest fighters in a sect were the elders of the sect, and the sect leader was slightly weaker. Few people of the same generation as the sect leader were so strong that they could even surpass many of the sect's elders. The current situation was clear. Yun Yang was the strongest fighter in Residence of Nine Supremes, followed by Luo Dejiang. However, these 2 men would obviously be reserved for the free match and the strongest match in the future. If Shi Wuchen, who was the second strongest fighter in Residence of Nine Supremes, were to fight this match, Du Yangfan was confident that his sect would have a 100% chance of winning based on Shi Wuchen's previous performance. Yun Yang nodded and said, "It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who fights this match. I've said it many times. So, Are you still going to send Shi Wuchen, who fought the last match? Du Yongfan asked faintly. Yun Yang gave him a strange smile and said, of course, not. Good. Du Yongfan said good subconsciously, but he did not expect that the other party would say, of course not. His words were stuck in his throat, and he felt like he had fallen into a pit. They are not sending Shi Wuchen. Why? Isn't this the match of the backbone? Does Residence of Nine Supremes intend to send someone else to fight this match? An idea suddenly flashed across Du Yongfan's mind. I did not mention the match of sect leaders in this match, but the free match. Residence of Nine Supremes can certainly choose Luo Dezhang, who is stronger, to fight in the third match of backbone, and Yun Yang himself will fight in the final match. Why not? Won't our chances of winning be higher this way? Du Yongfan asked himself. If it were him, he would never give up such a high chance of winning. However, if Luo Dezhang were to face Yang Ping, then their 100% chance of victory would plummet. Based on the battle prowess that Luo Dezhang had displayed, Yang Ping wasn't just not certain of victory. In fact, his chances of victory were minuscule. At this moment, Du Yongfan was so annoyed that he was about to go crazy. Yun Yang turned his head and said, brothers, who hasn't fought yet? Who else wants to join the match? Me. Me. Me, Tai Qingcang, Ren Qinghuang, Kong Luoyue, and the others immediately became excited and scrambled to join the match. On the opposite side, Yang Ping raised his eyes, and a cold gleam flashed across them. Du Yongfan was also startled. Hope reappeared in his eyes, but there were still many temptations and puzzlement in them. This is a battle, a crucial battle for the position of the sect. It is a fact that Residence of Nine Supremes has won all the battles, and it is understandable that you can be very aggressive. But, why are you randomly sending someone to fight at this critical juncture? Looking at these people shouting and playing rock-paper-scissors to decide who should go, Du Yongfan's eyes were burning with anger. How arrogant! They are too arrogant. Ha ha ha. With a long laugh, Tai Qingcang flew out and landed in the ring, throwing his head back and roaring with laughter. I've won. Ha ha ha. Kong Luoyue, who was standing opposite him and about to throw a punch, was dumbfounded. Then, his face filled with anger. I haven't even started playing rock-paper-scissors with you. How did you win? I've worked so hard and schemed to get into the finals, and just when I was about to fight for the last time, you just jumped out. You've won? When did you King win? Tai Qingcang. I can't believe a thick-browed, big-eyed guy like you is so despicable and shameless. Kong Luoyue was filled with grief and indignation. Next to him, Ren Qinghuang and the others were laughing so hard that they almost fell. No one had expected that Tai Qingcang, who had always been honest, would have such a shameless side to him, and he did it openly without hiding it. Chapter 1088. Of course, even if they knew who was right and who was wrong, they would not pay any attention to it. They had all been defeated in the rock-paper-scissors game, and they did not like Kong Luoyue. Now that someone had plucked the fruit of Kong Luoyue's victory, they could only snicker. No matter what, as long as he was out of the arena, the outcome was set in stone, and no one could change it. As soon as Tai Qingcang appeared, the people from the other sects thought it was Luo Dezhang, who had appeared once before. After all, both of them were tall and burly, and their auras were astonishing. In particular, many people thought about the rules of the competition set by Du Yongfan and thought of the key point. Now that Luo Dezhang was sent to fight, it was clearly within reason. What was there to be surprised about? On the other side, Yang Ping rose to his feet slowly. He held his sword in one hand and walked down from his high platform in a wobbly manner. According to his position, Yang Ping was supposed to fight in the match of the number 1 expert.
Although he had no choice but to be sent to fight in the middle, he was still not used to it, and he was a little mentally unbalanced. Tai Qingcang stood there like an iron tower, watching coldly as Yang Ping walked toward him. At this moment, Tai Qingcang's heart was filled with strong confidence. This Yang Ping is definitely no match for me. Coincidentally, neither of them was talkative. They only stood in the arena for a moment before they began to fight. One of them used a sword, and the other used a huge sword. Well, the sword used by the gold-hand scholar Tai Qingcang was one size bigger than an ordinary one, 2 fingers wider and a foot longer. The weight of the entire sword was twice that of an ordinary heavy sword, and it was truly a huge sword. The battle between the two men was full of sparks from the very beginning. Back and forth, you advance and I retreat, one after another, each with their own style. Streaks of green sword energy spread in all directions. It was a sign that they were evenly matched and could no longer control their extra strength, which was why the current phenomenon of energy dissipating appeared. Yun Yang's face grew grave as he watched the current situation. Yang Ping's cultivation base was so high that it was far beyond his expectation. According to Yun Yang's prediction, the strength of everyone in the residence of 9 Supremes, including Shi Wuchen, had improved so much that he was confident that there were few opponents in the entire lower-class celestial luck banner sects. However, the man in front of him seemed to be on par with Tai Qingcang. Apart from his strength, he was not inferior to Tai Qingcang in terms of the exquisiteness of his techniques and the depth of his mystical qi. The outcome of this battle was still uncertain. I can't believe someone from a sect ranked 8th among the lower-class celestial luck banners possesses such strength. Did it mean that Thousand Mountains sect had a stronger expert to deal with the battle of the number 1 expert later? Was Du Yangfan's overall strength even stronger? Why can't I see it at all? I've underestimated the heroes of this world after all. It looks like the final goal needs to be adjusted. Yun Yang sighed. Initially, he had wanted to rush to the middle rank in one go, but looking at the situation before him, it was a little difficult. While Yun Yang was lost in his thoughts, he did not know that the upper echelons of the sects ranked 7th, 6th, and 5th were sweating profusely as they watched the battle between the two men. The previous few battles were either decided by a single saber strike, or life and death were decided by a single move. Although it was shocking and soul-stirring, it only showed that there was a great disparity in the battle strength of the two sides. They were not on the same level, and nothing more could be seen. But now, these two people were evenly matched in strength, and it suddenly let everyone know their true strength. They were the peak of the 4th-tier Saint realm. Moreover, both of them had the same strength, and neither of them was weaker than the other. With this kind of strength, in his own sect, the number 1 expert was probably nothing more than this. I can't believe these two sects actually have such strong experts. It's true that Residence of 9 Supremes is a newcomer, and it's also true that its strength is unknown. But Thousand Mountains sect obviously has such a trump card, but why has it never challenged someone with a higher level? There was also the 7 Stars formation. Although Thousand Mountains sect's 7 Stars formation was crushed by Residence of 9 Supreme's 9 Peaks formation, it was still the best formation among the 10 sects with lower-class celestial luck banners in the past. It might not be the best, but it was at least in the top 3. Therefore, no matter which sect Thousand Mountains sect faced, it could win 2 matches in a row. How could it keep a low profile and endure for so long? Feeling the puzzled gazes from around him, Du Yangfan, the sect leader of Thousand Mountains sect, felt depressed. Do you think I don't want to challenge them? But the reality is that there's only one genius in Thousand Mountains sect, and his cultivation base is ridiculously high. Even if they can win 2 matches with the formation, that's all they can do. They don't have any other fighting techniques they can use, and it's still useless. Instead, they've exposed their strongest trump card. Otherwise, I'm not stupid, and I would have challenged them a long time ago.
I really have no other choice now. In order to fight for the last chance of winning and even the last bit of profit, I've finally used this last trump card. Who am I going to tell about my depression? Then, clang! The two swords broke at the same time. The front blades of the swords flew out in the same direction, but the two men were pushed back by the strong impact. Tai Ching-tsang burst out laughing. Suddenly, the clothes on his arms were torn to shreds, while his hands flashed with a golden light. Are those the golden hands of the gold-handed scholar? Outside, someone let out an unexpected cry of surprise. Tai Ching-tsang rushed forward at a super high speed like a bolt of lightning. As he rose and fell one of his hands, a brilliant golden light could be seen, and the power of his attack was even stronger than before. Opposite him, Yang Ping's hand was already on his spatial ring. As long as he had a moment to spare, he could take out his sword and fight again. However, Tai Ching-tsang's golden hand had arrived in an instant, and there was no time to spare. With no other choice, he could only step back while gathering his mystical energy and raising his palm to meet the attack. With a loud boom, Tai Ching-tsang was thrown back into the air by the counterattack of Yang Ping's strongest mystical energy. However, when he landed again, he did not hesitate to launch a new wave of attack. The golden light shone brilliantly, illuminating the whole arena as if it was made of gold. Chapter 1089. The two waves of attacks were closely connected without any gap. Like a goshawk, Tai Ching-tsang kept falling and swooping down. Then, he would be knocked back up, fall again, and launch another attack. After 5 or 6 times in a row, Yang Ping had staggered back hundreds of feet. He could feel that his opponent was rising and falling. Although his feet never touched the ground, and it was difficult for him to borrow strength, his mystical chi attacks were getting stronger and stronger, and the pressure from his palms was getting heavier. Gradually, Yang Ping had a feeling that he could not hold on any longer. Tai Ching-tsang fell again, and an even stronger and fiercer attack followed. Yang Ping not only had a profound cultivation base, but he also had rich combat experience. He knew that if this went on, his opponent would be able to borrow the force of the aftershock to fly back up, and if this went on for a long time, he would not be able to escape defeat. The moment he realized this, he gritted his teeth and gathered all the mystical chi in his body, then threw out a palm strike. With another explosion, Tai Ching-tsang was knocked high into the air again, but Yang Ping had retreated 200 feet in an instant, then moved 100 feet to the left at top speed. With a clang, he finally held the second sword in his hand. The situation seemed to have changed again, but Tai Ching-tsang, who was in midair, still chose to continue the attack. He suddenly spread his arms, turned around, and swooped down like a huge goshawk. At the same time, the sword in Yang Ping's hand flashed with a threatening light. Tai Ching-tsang did not dodge, as if he had ignored the counterattack. He maintained his original momentum and kept bombarding with a pair of golden palms. Yang Ping roared and slashed out with his sword. Tai Ching-tsang sneered and met the attack with one hand. In the arena, Yunfeng took a deep breath and said, "The outcome is about to be decided. Both sides have prepared some moves for this attack, and they are using their lifetime cultivation base. It's a wonderful battle." Ding Byuk and Yu Bunning were also experts in cultivation, so they watched the battle intently and did not look as nervous as Yunfeng. Although the battle in front of them was related to hundreds of top-grade spiritual jades, the two of them were already prepared to lose the bet at the beginning of the battle between the two sections. Now that the situation had changed and was developing in an unprecedentedly good direction, they were almost sure of the victory. They didn't care too much about the outcome of the battle. Instead, they cared more about the brilliance of the battle. No matter who won in the end, it wouldn't affect the brilliance of the battle. For a moment, the battlefield was filled with sword energy, and Tai Ching-tsang's dazzling golden hands were waving freely as he approached Bufang like a bolt of lightning. As expected, the two of them once again engaged in the most extreme head-on collision. Yang Ping let out a furious roar. The already magnificent sword energy rose by 30% and pierced Tai Qingsang's palm. However, Tai Qingsang's expression did not change in the face of such a serious injury. Instead of retreating, his pierced hand moved forward and grabbed the sword, letting the golden blood flow everywhere. His other free hand, however, was like a mountain-splitting axe, smashing down violently with a crazy momentum. Yang Ping sneered. His left hand, which was not holding a sword, suddenly held a sword again and thrust it toward Tai Qingsang's heart. It was fast, accurate, and ruthless. Not only does this man have a profound cultivation base, but his swordsmanship is also brilliant. He can even wield a sword with both hands at will. How can an ordinary man compare to him? Yang Ping's intention was simple and clear: you can hit me with your palm, but the price is that I will kill you with my sword when you are hit. Tai Qingsang's expression did not change, but he twisted his body abruptly and maintained the same momentum. His palm was still falling crazily, while Yang Ping's sword pierced through his right chest and back with great force. If Yang Ping had a moment's delay, Ong Ping could have injected a large amount of mystical energy into Tai Qingsang's body and detonated it. With their cultivation bases being about the same, Tai Qingsang would have been dead for sure. Unexpectedly, the moment Tai Qingsang was hit by the sword, he twisted his body again and locked the sword with his muscles and bones. Then, just as the mystical energy on Yang Ping's sword was about to enter his body, his palm fell hard on Yang Ping's right shoulder. Gotcha! The bones in Yang Ping's right shoulder were instantly shattered, and half of his chest was almost smashed as well. Tai Qingsang's swords were locked, his shoulder was broken, and his mystical qi became even more chaotic. But Yang Ping was really amazing. Although he could no longer guide his mystical qi to detonate Tai Qingsang's body, he immediately let go of the sword with his left hand and punched the hilt. The sword regained its momentum, and the entire blade stabbed into Tai Qingsang's body until the hilt was gone. His fist, on the other hand, smashed into the wound on Tai Qingsang's chest without losing its momentum. A loud thud and a crack could be heard. Tai Qingsang's ribs were broken, which further injured him. However, Tai Qingsang did not retreat. Even though he was already seriously injured, he still took a step forward and slammed his head into Yang Ping's forehead. Yang Ping's skull cracked with a crack, causing him to cry out in pain. Then, he retaliated by slamming his knee into Tai Qingsang's lower abdomen. It was only then that the two of them separated, but they were still very close to each other, almost touching each other. At this moment, Tai Qingsang's pierced right hand was still tightly gripping Yang Ping's sword as he struck Yang Ping's neck with all his might. Almost at the same time, Yang Ping's left hand had turned into a knife and was aimed at Tai Qingsang's neck. Obviously, he wanted to kill Tai Qingsang with one blow. Tai Qingsang grabbed Yang Ping's hand with his left hand and hit Yang Ping's forehead with his head again. Blood splattered from their foreheads at the same time. Yang Ping screamed even louder as he quickly broke free from Tai Qingsang's grip with his left hand and grabbed Tai Qingsang's neck, but Tai Qingsang hit him again. Boom! Boom! The atmosphere of the battle between the two of them was so intense that it was unbearable to watch. Blood, flesh, and even bones flew out from time to time. Yang Ping's head had been smashed like a watermelon and was no longer whole. Blood gushed out from all over the place. Tai Qingsang's condition was not much better. There was almost no part of his body that was intact, and there was a hole in his right chest, but he still kept hitting Yang Ping's head. Bam! 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 Every time Tai Qingsang and Yang Ping collided, the hearts of all the spectators skipped a beat. Their mouths were dry, and they were terrified. A long time later, both of them fell down together. But they were still moving. Well, it should be said that they were wriggling, desperately trying to get up. Yang Ping kept moving, and after a few movements, he suddenly fell to the ground and stopped moving. Tai Ching-tsang was panting heavily and kept vomiting blood and pieces of internal organs, but he managed to prop himself up with his left hand. Looking at the motionless body in front of him, Tai Ching-tsang burst out laughing. After coughing out a mouthful of sticky blood, he said in a hoarse voice, "I've won." Before his voice could fade away, he fell to the ground and stopped breathing. Chapter 1090. As far as the result of the battle was concerned, both of them had died together. However, Yang Ping was the first to die, while Tai Ching-tsang announced his victory when he stood up for the last time and uttered his last words. Even if Tai Ching-tsang died in the end, it was still considered his victory. There was no doubt about this, and no one could question it. The faces of everyone in Thousand Mountains sect turned pale, and there was only despair in their eyes. Was Thousand Mountains sect going to lose its position just like that? 3 battles, 3 defeats. Not even the last piece of cloth was left. 2 hours ago, we were still in 8th place. Now, we are the 9th, the last of the lower-class celestial luck banners. Du Yongfan covered his chest with his hands. He felt a terrible pain in his chest, so much so that he wanted to die. However, although the faces of the people from Thousand Mountains sect were unsightly, they were not the most unsightly among those present, because the person with the most unsightly expression was the one who had stepped forward at this moment. Third match. Residents of 9 Supremes, wins. Hui Yunfeng's voice was mixed with a kind of disheartened dejection. The pain in his heart at this moment was like 10,000 arrows piercing his heart. My heart is broken. He lost again, losing 360 pieces of supreme-grade spiritual jades. $360. In addition to the 120 yuan he had lost earlier. 480 pieces of supreme-grade spirit jades. I don't want to live anymore, I can't live anymore. It was clearly a battle that they had a 90% chance of winning, but they still lost. Moreover, he lost cleanly and happily. Ding Byuk and Yu Buneng tried their best to maintain their composure. Big brother, you always say that a bet must be fair, and a bet must be won. We are very embarrassed, but a win is a win, and a loss is a loss. We will not be disrespectful. Hui Yunfeng's face was livid. I'll give them to you when we get back. I've left all the supreme-grade spirit jades at home, why don't you give it to him now? Yu Buneng pursed his lips and said, we know that all your top-grade spiritual jades are in your ring. Given Big Brother's character, how can he be at ease if he doesn't carry such good stuff with him? When we get back, I'm afraid it will be very difficult for us to see you again. Do I look like a shameless person who goes back on his word? Hui Yunfeng cried in grief and indignation, almost coughing up blood. You are. The two of them nodded in agreement. There was a flash of light. Tai Ching-tsang and Yang Ping were both revived. Their eyes were blank for a moment, and then they recalled the battle at the same time. Yang Ping's expression was extremely complicated. He said slowly, I'll seek advice from Brother Tai in the future. Tai Ching-tsang's eyes were full of sincerity as he said, there's still a long way to go, and I'm sure we'll meet again. Yang Ping nodded, turned around, and slowly walked back. The expression on his face did not show any sign of defeat. Instead, it was calm, and his eyes were crystal clear. He had actually benefited a lot from this battle, and it was only a matter of time before he made another breakthrough. In fact, this was inevitable. The path of cultivation was rugged and difficult, and the easiest way to make progress was to go through life-and-death battles. Tai Ching-tsang and Yang Ping's cultivation base was similar, and so was their fighting spirit and willpower. Although Tai Ching-tsang had won this battle, it was still a tie for both of them. Moreover, they would take another big step forward after this battle. Therefore, this battle was a great opportunity for Yang Ping. After all, with his current status, background, and strength, it was almost impossible for him to find an opponent who was on par with him and fight him in an extreme battle without causing any trouble afterward. And this battle was obviously a rare opportunity that could not be replicated. In the Celestial Luck Banner Challenge, Residents of 9 Supremes has defeated Thousand Mountains Sect, which is ranked 8th, and advanced to the next round. Hui Yunfeng announced with his heart bleeding. My heart and liver. It hurts so much. Half of my life's savings, all ended in one day, and these two little beasts have one half of it. Damn it. Will Residents of 9 Supremes continue the challenge? Yun Yang's voice was clear and loud. Yes, of course. Sect Leader Du, we still have the last 2 matches. Thousand Mountains Sect admits defeat. We don't have to fight the last 2 matches. Du Yangfan made the decision without hesitation. If Yang Ping had won the last match, he would naturally continue to fight with all his strength and try his luck. But now, he had lost all 3 matches, and his sect's demotion was a foregone conclusion. It was meaningless for him to fight the last 2 matches that he had no chance of winning. At most, he would be working for free for the 7th-ranked sect, letting them see more of Residents of 9 Supreme strength and deal with it calmly. Do we look so stupid to you? How could we do it without a certain benefit? Hui Yunfeng swallowed and said, Thousand Mountains Sect has forfeited the last 2 matches. Residents of 9 Supremes, which ranks 8th with the lower-class Celestial Luck Banners, has won all 5 matches and will automatically enter the next round. We will challenge Illusory Sword Sect, which ranks 7th. The faces of all the people from Illusory Sword Sect flickered when they heard that. Residents of 9 Supremes' morale was soaring, and its fighting strength was even more appalling. Thousand Mountains Sect had sent out all its elites, but they were still defeated. Their sect really had no confidence at all. What should they do? Yun Yang, sect leader of Residents of 9 Supremes, and Lu Qingfeng, sect leader of Illusory Sword Sect, please come up for a discussion. At the same time, the whole space fell into complete silence. In just a short period of time, Residents of 9 Supremes had won all the matches and advanced 2 levels. What was worse was that no one had figured out the strength of Residents of 9 Supremes. Whether it was Shi Wuchen in the match of the backbone or the match of the disciples or the match of the formations, none of the flaws was a flaw. All of them were extremely strong. After experiencing the new round of the match of the backbone and witnessing Tai Qingsang's fighting strength, they no longer believed that Luo Dujiang was the strongest expert of Residents of 9 Supremes after Yun Yang. So, how far could Residents of 9 Supremes advance? This was something that no one could come to a conclusion about. But, how could Residents of 9 Supremes, which had just been established for less than half a year, be so fierce? Was there any justice in this world? On the high platform, Lu Qingfeng, as the challenged party, your Illusory Sword Sect can decide the rules of the match according to the rules, Hui Yunfeng said in a businesslike manner. He glanced at Yun Yang and then hurriedly turned his head back. One look at him would make one's heart ache so much that one would rather die than make a sound. You are simply my bane. I don't want to see you. Yun Yang shuddered when he was stared at by the deacon's resentful gaze. What's going on? Why are you looking at me like that? I'm so scared to tell you. Lu Qingfeng's eyes were also complicated at the moment, and the way he looked at Yun Yang also seemed to be resentful. What tactics can I use? In the match of formations, our sect is even weaker than Thousand Mountains Sect. Are we going to be killed by you? The match of the backbone and the match of the peak. Based on the strength shown by Tai Qingsang just now, none of us can defeat him. The match of the sect leaders? Forget it. I can only defeat Shi Wuchen at most. How can I be a match for Yun Yang? At most, it's the match of the disciples, and there may be a little hope. What the F***ck is there to fight? We don't have a chance of winning any of the tactics we can choose. We are bound to lose at least 3 matches. How the F***ck am I supposed to choose? As a sect leader, Lu Qingfeng had always been calm and well-behaved. But now, he was at a loss for words because of this choice. Chapter 1091. I need to discuss this with the people in my sect. Lu Qingfeng said bitterly. All right. Lu Qingfeng left. Yun Yang was still where he was. Sect leader Yun, you don't look very old, do you? Hui Yunfeng tried to find something to talk about. I'm 20 years old this year. Yun Yang nodded. I'm not young anymore. You're not young anymore? How are you not young anymore? Hui Yunfeng was shocked by the answer he received. Although he had long judged that Yun Yang was not old with his experience and judgment, he did not expect the boy to be so young. He was almost a teenager. 20 years old. A saint at the age of 20. Are you trying to scare me to death? Even in the Sacred Heart Palace, there are not many people with such a cultivation base at such an age. Just now, he thought that sect leader Yun might be an old monster pretending to be young, but he did not expect that he was really young. Sect leader Yun, you're a gifted genius. Hui Yunfeng said with great sincerity. Ding Byuk said, Big brother, why don't we bet again? We'll bet on residents of 9 Supremes. Huh. Hui Yunfeng put on a fake smile and said, you two can go wherever you want to die. Do you think I'm stupid? It's still uncertain whether Illusory Sword Sect will fight or not. Maybe they will just admit defeat. Do you think I can't tell? Do you really think I'm a fool with too much money? I've fallen into the same pit twice. Do you want me to fall into it a third time? You two are so mean. Meanwhile, Lu Qingfeng returned to his sect and discussed countermeasures with several higher-ups. Spittle flew everywhere as they discussed, but there was still no conclusion. After a long while, everyone lowered their heads, helplessness and humiliation overflowing on their faces. Lu Qingfeng stood up. There's no need to fight this round. Illusory Sword Sect admits defeat. Admit defeat. As soon as the decision came out, it shocked the whole venue. As soon as the words came out, residents of 9 Supremes won without a fight and advanced directly to the 7th place. F***ck. The sect leader of Beast Trainer Sect, who was ranked 6th, cursed. Lu Qingfeng, you're the sect leader of a sect with a lower-class celestial luck banner. You can't just admit defeat. You should at least fight, right? It was better to be beaten to death than to be scared to death, didn't you understand? To actually admit defeat without even fighting. Aren't you guys ashamed? The sect leader of Beast Trainer Sect, Qin Ruogu, was so angry that his nose almost went crooked, but there was still something he wanted to say in his heart. How would we know if the residents of 9 Supreme still has hidden forces if you don't even fight? Lu Qingfeng said faintly, Illusory Sword Sect is ranked 7th, only in the lower 3 grades of lower class sections. Even if we fall to 8th, we are still on the same level, and the gap is negligible. We appreciate residents of 9 Supremes, so we might as well not fight. We'll make way for our friend and save time for all the sects present. We're doing this for everyone's sake. As he spoke, he nodded at Yun Yang from afar. It meant that they were friends. Yun Yang nodded and smiled as well. I'm afraid our friendship can only last until the end of this Celestial Luck Banner competition. It won't last much longer, he thought to himself. It seems that in addition to these people here, many of the disciples you left in your base have been killed by residents of 9 Supremes. If you can swallow such a deep hatred, I may admire you or be wary of you, but I will never regard you as a friend. Now, let's invite Qin Ruogu, the sect leader of Beast Trainer Sect, up here for a talk, said Hui Yunfeng. Then, he asked Yun Yang, Sect leader Yun, do you want to challenge the residents of Beast Trainer Sect in one go today? Or do you want to rest for a day? Or do you want to fight the next day? Yun-yang was surprised. We can rest during the Celestial Luck Banner competition. Of course, we can rest, Hui Yunfeng said amiably. It's fine if there are no challenges from sects, but if there are a lot of challenges, it's possible for the competition to last for a month. Yun-yang thought for a moment and said, then let's continue the challenge tomorrow morning. Upon hearing Yun-yang's words, Qin Ruogu breathed a sigh of relief. It was also a good thing for Beast Trainer sect to have one more night to come up with strategies and tactics. At least, they had time to plan. Now, residents of Nine Supreme's unstoppable momentum was just too frightening. He had to admit that he was under a lot of pressure. Even though residents of Nine Supremes could adjust their breath, recover their mind, and even discuss strategies after they went back, they knew very little about Beast Trainer sect. Residents of Nine Supremes had definitely miscalculated by giving them one more night. On the same night, it was nighttime. Wuchen, it's time for the 9 of us to take our medicine. Yun-yang's face was full of a sinister smile as he took out some pills. This is a great place. All divine senses are sealed off, and it's absolutely safe. In other words, we can safely and smoothly break through our current realm tonight, and no sect or anyone will know about it. At least, we'll have to wait until tomorrow before someone comes to share our joy. There was a sinister smile on Yun-yang's face, which was really F*King incongruous with his handsome face. The smile made sure Wuchen and the others break out in a cold sweat for Beast Trainer sect. Whenever their boss showed such a smile, someone would be tricked to death. So far, there had been no exception. It seemed that Beast Trainer sect was destined to have an easy time tomorrow. In fact, as long as they thought about it, they would be able to roughly guess what would happen tomorrow. The other side would use the strength of their opponents they saw today as a benchmark, and from there, they would come up with the corresponding battle tactics and strategies. But when they really fought tomorrow, the strength that the other side's participants displayed was actually an entire realm higher than yesterday's. How were they going to fight this battle? It was also because of this similarity that Shi Wuchen and the others had a sinister smile on their faces as they took the pills given by Yun-yang one by one. Don't worry too much. There's one more thing we need to consider. That is, Beast Trainer sect is famous for its beasts, so they will definitely have some unconventional means to help them in battle. We don't have this kind of assistance, so it will be unprecedentedly difficult to fight against enemies with the help of spiritual beasts. Fighting one is almost like fighting two. We have to be careful about this. Also, Beast Trainer sect is a middle 3-class sect with lower-class Celestial Luck banners, so they will definitely be much more difficult to deal with than Thousand Mountains sect. We have to pay attention to this as well, Yun-yang said solemnly. It was as if the person with the sinister look just now was not him. He changed his expression so quickly that it was almost as if he was the best actor. We don't have to worry about the breakthrough of our strength today, but in tomorrow's match of disciples and even the match of formations, the disciples will have to face the beasts as support. I'm afraid the result will be uncertain. They have no experience in this aspect. After all, our goal is to win all the matches, and we can't afford to lose even one. When Shi Wuchen and the others heard Yun-yang's concern, they too began to worry, and the calmness they had a moment ago vanished instantly. This was indeed a problem that could not be ignored. Chapter 1092. Based on my understanding of the beast-controlling sect, the spirit beasts and profound beasts that the people of the beast-controlling sect can control basically do not exceed their own cultivation. At most, they are of the same level, and being of the same level is a very rare match. The demon race is always watching from the sidelines. As long as the cultivation base of the subdued beasts exceeds that of their masters, their control will be weakened, and they can easily be instigated by the demon race. It's not uncommon for such beasts to backfire in battles like this. So,
Luo Dujiang continued, if they encounter us, who are experienced, they will often concentrate their power to the limit to kill the mystical beasts first, and then turn to deal with the beast master. After all, the combat strength of the controlled mystical beasts will no longer be wild, and their innate combat ability will be reduced by at least one level. In this way, it's actually not difficult to kill them. Tai Qingcang snorted and said, what's the use of saying all this? Who doesn't know this? The problem now is that our disciples have excellent cultivation base, but they have never seen a ferocious beast. It's already good enough that they don't cry in fear when it suddenly appears in front of them. It's too dangerous to fight it rashly. If anything happens to them, I'm afraid it will leave a psychological scar in their hearts, which will cause endless trouble in the future, not to mention the battle for the celestial luck banner. This was indeed a tricky problem, and if it could not be solved, it would be a great crisis. Yunyang frowned and said slowly, you don't have to worry about this. Take the medicine and break through first, and I'll think of a way. Sigh, it's just a rehearsal after all, and it may not work. But there's nothing else we can do now. We can only try it as a last resort. May I ask what the solution is, boss? Everyone was very curious about the solution Yunyang mentioned, and they were not in the mood to take the medicine to break through. Yunyang ignored Shi Wuchen and the rest. He gathered all 10 of his disciples and gave each of them a small bead. Wear this when you're going to fight tomorrow. If you encounter a mystical beast, you can try to persuade it. Just try to communicate with it. Cough, cough. I believe it will work. Everyone present, without exception, stared with wide eyes. Try to persuade it. Try to communicate with it. With mystical beasts and spirit beasts? Can they understand it? Is this your so-called method of trying everything in a desperate situation? There really was no other way. It was simply wishful thinking. Desperate times call for desperate measures. There's no need to be so surprised. You don't need to know what's in your hands right now. All you need to know is that this thing has a very good effect on Xian beasts, spirit beasts, or demonic beasts. You only need to say, I have something good here. The only thing you need to pay attention to is that the beads in your hands cannot be snatched away by anyone. If someone really comes to snatch it, swallow it immediately. Yunyang instructed, do you remember? Got it. Yun Xiaoxin and the others were naturally puzzled by Yun Yang's strategy, but they also knew that now was not the time to solve their doubts. He only needed to do as he was told. In any case, his master would not harm him. For the rest of the night, the residence of 9 Supremes had not been lit at all. There was not a single sound of activity. The platforms were separated from each other by a thick white fog. Even if there were lights, even if there were any movements, it would be completely obscured. Therefore, no one knew that there was no movement from the residence of 9 Supremes. As for Beast Trainer Sect, residence of 9 Supremes' opponent tomorrow, they had been planning and preparing for the whole night. This is a fight to the death for our sect. Qin Ruogu's face was very grave. Our sect is different from Thousand Mountains Sect or Illusory Sword Sect. As that old fool Lu Qingfeng said, whether they win or lose, they will still be lower-class celestial luck banners, but we are middle-class celestial luck banners, and once we take a step back, it's equivalent to dropping a level. Thousand Mountains Sect and Illusory Sword Sect's ranking may drop, but they won't really lose anything, but if we lose, we'll suffer a great loss. For our sect, we can only win this battle. I'll be frank, if you lose because of the absolute gap in strength, no one will blame you. But, if someone loses because of carelessness, he or she will have to go to the Patriarch and kill himself to apologize. Qin Ruogu's eyes were particularly fierce and frightening at the moment. Everyone nodded in agreement. After all, they all knew the seriousness of the consequences of losing the battle, and none of them thought that Qin Ruogu was making a fuss over a minor issue. Now, let's discuss the specific tactics of the battle.
Qin Ruogu took a deep breath and calmed his face. Our goal is to win 3 matches, and there's no need to pursue too much. An old man with white hair and a beard, his face full of wrinkles and his eyes gleaming, said, for example, residents of 9 Supreme's tactics of formations have reached the pinnacle of the Tao of formations, and it is the most powerful formation I've ever seen in my life. No matter what, it will be difficult for us to win this match. Personally, I suggest we just give up and stop wasting our energy. You're right, Uncle Master. The Tao of formations is indeed difficult to turn around, said Qin Ruogu. In your opinion, what are our chances in the remaining 4 matches? The strongest fighting force in our sect is you, Uncle Master. You're a peak 4th tier saint expert, and also our greatest trump card. Qin Ruogu said, Uncle Master, in your opinion, what is the real cultivation base of Luodujiang, Tai Qingcang, and that Yun-Yang in the few matches during the day? If Uncle Master were to fight them, would you be able to defeat any of them? The old man's wrinkled face looked even deeper when he heard that. He went over the battle during the day in his mind again, and then said in a deep voice, these 3 men should be the strongest fighting force in residence of 9 Supremes, so I can't be wrong. According to my observation. He paused again and said, even though these people's cultivation is not as good as mine, the difference is extremely small. Qin Ruogu's face darkened again. Doesn't that mean each of them has the cultivation base of a peak 4th tier saint? 3 peak 4th tier saints? When the others heard this, their expressions changed for a while and they panicked. The reason why the illusory sword sect could suppress the Thousand Mountains sect, which was famous for its formation, was not because of its lack of strength. But the reason why it could not make further progress and obtain a higher grade of celestial luck banner was because the beast-controlling sect not only had the help of mystical beasts but also 2 4th-level saints, while the illusory sword sect only had 1. This little difference in peak fighting strength determined the overall strength of the 2 sects. On the surface, the residents of 9 Supremes already had 3 4th-grade saints. Their combined combat strength was already above beast trainer sects. Not to mention that they were defeated in the first match of formations, which made them even more powerless to fight. Under such conditions, it was not a pipe dream to win 3 matches, but at least the situation was unprecedentedly grim, appalling, and unimaginable. The situation has not developed to the point of no return yet. The old man hesitated for a moment, and then said, Beast Trainer sect is famous for its beasts, so we naturally have to think of a way to deal with this. First of all, I'll bring my Jade Wind Wolf to fight tomorrow and inject the fire of life into it. I think I can increase my chances of winning to more than 80%, and I'll win the match as soon as possible. Qin Ruogu's expression flickered, and a deep sorrow came over his face. Chapter 1093. The so-called flame of life was the most intuitive manifestation of the power of life. The fighting strength enhanced by the flame of life could only last for a moment, and it could not be replenished easily. Even in the 5th-layer celestial realm, it could not be replenished, especially when such a mystic art had to be developed before the battle. The current condition of this Uncle Master of Beast Trainer sect was probably slightly better than that of Elder Zhang and Elder Li. Although his life was almost at its end, he still had a few decades to live. Originally, there was still a slight hope for him to find an opportunity to make a breakthrough, or to find some treasures to prolong his life. There was still hope in all these. But, if he destroyed the flame of life this time, his life would be further consumed, and he might not be able to wait until then, and he would certainly die prematurely. But, this was the only match they had the confidence to win, so they had to fight. Because if they did not, they would surely lose. Uncle Master. Everyone's expression changed. My battle has been decided. A serene smile appeared on the old man's face as he said, the foundation and glory of my ancestors that lasted thousands of years, if I just watch it be lost, how would I have the face to pay my respects to my ancestors in the future? Qin Ruogu took a deep breath, gritted his teeth, and said, "All right, Uncle Master's match is decided." Everyone bowed their heads in silence for a long while. "Let's move on to the second match," Qin Ruogu said through gritted teeth. "The second match is between the disciples. We should have a 70% chance of winning this match. Every junior disciple of Residents of Nine Supremes is a young genius, and I can see it without using my divine sense. However, it is precisely because they are all young geniuses that they are young and have little experience that they cannot avoid. If our disciples bring their spirit beasts with them, they will certainly be caught off guard and thrown into a panic. As long as we strike at the right moment, our chances of winning are still very high. All right, the second match will be a one-on-one match between the disciples. How should we proceed with the third match?" asked Qin Ruogu. The old man gave Qin Ruogu a meaningful look and said, "Ruogu, the third match is the match of sect leaders." "The match of sect leaders?" Qin Ruogu was taken aback. "I'm a saint at the pinnacle of the second level, but Yun Yang is already at the pinnacle of the fourth level." The old man smiled faintly. "No, I'm certain that you'll win. Have you forgotten that our beast trainer sect's guardian divine beast, Qin Ruogu's spirit was lifted when he heard that?" Not bad," he said. It was the first time Qin Ruogu smiled today. At this moment, Qin Ruogu felt much more relaxed. According to Marshal Granduncle's arrangement, their chances of winning had really risen to more than 80%. It had to be said that the older the ginger, the spicier it was. Last but not least, I'd like to make one more point. According to our wishful thinking, our chances of winning the 3 matches should be more than 80%. The old man said, "But, we must set aside one match in case something unexpected happens. Whether Residents of Nine Supremes has shown its full strength is still uncertain. For example, when they fought Kangwu Union, they sent Shi Wuchen. Although his overall strength was only second-rate, everyone misjudged him and thought he was the second strongest expert of Residents of Nine Supremes. That was a great miscalculation. We've already done everything we can, and we can't afford to make any mistakes in this detail." "I have an idea," a young disciple suddenly interjected. "We can propose a match of mystical beasts. That is, we can use mystical beasts to decide the outcome of the match." "Nonsense." Qin Ruogu was displeased. "Residents of Nine Supremes doesn't have any mystical beasts." Before he could finish, his eyes lit up. "It's true that Residents of Nine Supremes doesn't have any mystical beasts, and it's not fair to use mystical beasts to decide the outcome of the match. However, Thousand Mountains sect has avoided the match of sect leaders with the excuse of fighting on their own. That's a lesson from the past. Why can't we do the same? We're in charge of the rules of the match, and we can fight however we want. If we do that, although we'll lose face, we'll still win the match, Master." Upon hearing the disciples' words, the eyes of everyone in Beast Trainer sect lit up. "Not bad. Not bad at all. This is a wonderful idea. Beast Trainer sect is famous for its beasts, so it's reasonable for us to use mystical beasts and spirit beasts to fight, and it's even understandable for us to use demon beasts. That's the kind of sect we are after all. What a brilliant idea." Qin Ruogu burst out laughing. "With that, we can really be said to be invincible. If we win the first 3 matches, we naturally won't use this dishonorable trick. But, if that happens, maybe we can use this trick to turn the tables. Sect leader is wise." Qin Ruogu looked at the disciple and said, "Go back and receive your reward after we return victorious." "Thank you, Master." The whole Beast Trainer sect was in a jubilant mood. But the old man just sighed softly and closed his eyes, for he felt a piercing chill filling his heart. Previously, when they did not have a way to win, it was understandable for them to include him in the starting lineup by sacrificing his lifespan. But now, with such a trick, they could win this match for sure, and they could just put me in the back as a last resort. Why? Why didn't the whole sect think of it? Why didn't anyone mention it? Was it just because the trick was dishonorable and they refused to give up their pride? Everyone in the sect was jumping with joy as if victory was already in their grasp, and none of them had considered that their martial uncle master's life would come to an end after this battle. The old man closed his eyes, and the chill in his heart seemed to have grown stronger. I have been protecting Beast Trainer sect all my life. Why is it that when the most important battle comes, I am still willing to sacrifice myself to protect my sect? Early the next morning. Although the whole arena was still shrouded in a boundless fog, the morning air was fresher and more pleasant than that of the outside world. Everyone, including Hu Yunfeng, came to the grandstand one after another. Their eyes were fixed on the celestial luck banner, which was now in the 7th place. The look in their eyes was very complicated. It had been many years since something like this had happened in the Battle of the Celestial Luck Banner. The Battle of the Celestial Luck Banner was held every 3 years, and every 3 years, a challenger would be born to challenge the sect that ranked last in the lower-class Celestial Luck Banner. Kangwu Union was also a strong sect that had been challenged in recent years, but had never been replaced. Over the years, it had probably only been threatened by another sect with a strong foundation, the Wild Saber sect. There had been no other challenges. However, the Residence of 9 Supremes was only a small sect that had just been established. Not long after its emergence, it had advanced all the way and obtained the qualification to face the veteran sects with Celestial Luck Banner. Moreover, after defeating the strong sect, Kangwu Union, it went on to challenge Thousand Mountains sect. Even when its opponent maliciously changed the rules of the match, it still won a complete victory. After that, it defeated the higher-ranked Illusory Sword sect without a fight, and now challenged Beast Trainer sect, which ranked 7th in the lower-class Celestial Luck Banner. In one go, it had defeated 3 sects with lower-class Celestial Luck Banners in a row. Remember the mobile version's URL, Chapter 216, the plan is set. Page 1/1, bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 1094. Such an achievement was more than appalling, it was simply insane and boundlessly ruthless. But now, they still wanted to move forward. It seemed that the word strong had been applied to Residence of 9 Supremes. They just didn't know how long and to what extent Residence of 9 Supremes could maintain its strength. No one could guarantee which ranking they would stop at. At this moment, the few sects that were ranked at the top of the rankings all felt a subtle sense of danger, as if they were all trembling with fear. It would be fine if Beast Trainer sect could successfully intercept Residence of 9 Supremes, but if they failed, Residence of 9 Supremes would become a thorn in their flesh, and they would never feel at ease at all. Standing on the high platform, Hu Yunfeng could not help but roll his eyes when he saw that all the other sects had arrived except for Residence of 9 Supremes. They're really patient. Beast Trainer sect has arrived a long time ago. Ding Byuk smiled faintly and said, if it were me, I would be very patient too. Because the fundamental purpose of coming here was achieved yesterday. No matter how far we can go, we will have earned it. How can we not be patient? Moreover, there is no danger involved. Even if we die, we can be resurrected on the spot. What's the point of fighting for a moment? Yu Bunning laughed and said, that's right. Do you want to make another bet? Hu Yunfeng rolled his eyes. A bet between Residence of 9 Supremes and Beast Trainer sect? Ding Byuk and Yu Bunning's faces changed at the same time. Last night, they had held the 240 pieces of supreme-grade spiritual jade in their hands, and they had been smiling even in their dreams. Now, when they heard that the culprit was still unwilling to give up, they were naturally shocked and flustered. Hu Yunfeng must have some ulterior motive for making the bet 3 times. Could their luck continue? The current situation was different from the previous day. In the first round, the two of them were forcibly pulled into the game by Hu Yunfeng. Although they won in an inexplicable way. In the second round, the two of them almost gave up. After all, everyone could see that Hu Yunfeng was determined to make up for his loss in the first round. However, the unexpected victory gave the two of them an unimaginably huge profit. Now that Hu Yunfeng had proposed a bet, the two of them were naturally unwilling from the bottom of their hearts. After all, there was no need for them to take risks when they had such great benefits. "Let's bet on today's battle," said Hu Yunfeng. Residence of Nine Supreme's formidable strength is still vivid in everyone's mind, and its strength is beyond everyone's expectation. On the other side, Beast Trainer sect is also a middle-tier sect with lower-class celestial luck banners. Their strength is not weak, and Illusory Sword sect, Thousand Mountains sect, and Kangwu Union can compare with them. Moreover, they have the help of mystical beasts. The fight between these two sects will not only be exciting, it will also be filled with suspense. He said, "So this time, the odds are 1-to-1, which is the fairest." Ding Byuk and Yu Bunning looked at each other and felt a headache coming on. If it was possible, the two of them definitely didn't want to gamble anymore, but how could they not gamble? The two of them had won 2 rounds in a row, and their boss had lost so badly that his face had turned green. If they didn't give him a chance to make a comeback, wouldn't that be too ugly? Therefore, they still had to gamble this round. But, as Hu Yunfeng said, it was really difficult to judge which of the two sects was stronger and who would win. In the first 2 rounds, residents of Nine Supremes faced Kangwu Union and Thousand Mountains sect. Because of Shi Wuchen's first battle, everyone had a painful experience of misjudging residents of Nine Supremes' fighting strength. As a result, residents of Nine Supremes, which was supposed to be freakishly strong, was mistaken as a pushover. This also made residents of Nine Supremes look weak, which led them to passively choose to bet on it. They had no choice but to gamble in the first round, which was actually to deliberately send money over, and in the second round, it was to return the money. Who would have thought that they would win both rounds? But, how should they bet on this round? Since it's hard to judge, let's ask Boss to choose first. Boss will choose one, and will choose the other. It all depends on luck, and there's no other way to explain it. The two of them made up their minds. In the face of their decision, Hu Yunfeng was in a dilemma. After all, even Hu Yunfeng found it difficult to choose at the moment. There was no doubt that residents of Nine Supremes was very strong. Everyone could see it and could not deny it. However, almost every senior member of Beast Trainer sect and its core fighting force had a mystical beast with them, and even the elite disciples often had pet beasts with them. It was no joke that Beast Trainer sect's fighting strength had increased out of thin air. This must be taken into account. Under such circumstances, no matter how strong residents of Nine Supremes was, it might not be a match for Beast Trainer sect. I choose Beast Trainer sect this round. Hu Yunfeng gritted his teeth and said, "I don't believe I can fall into the same trap 3 times. Ding Byuk and Yu Bunning nodded helplessly. In that case, we'll still bet on residents of Nine Supremes. What's the bet for this round? 100 Supreme Grade bets this time. What do you think?" Hu Yunfeng gritted his teeth and pondered for a long time before finally coming up with a number. Ding Byuk and Yu Bunning were a little surprised when they heard it. They had thought that he would propose a bet of hundreds of spiritual jade, but it was only 100 this time. This doesn't seem to be Boss's style. "Boss, don't tell me you've run out of money?" Yu Bunning asked suspiciously. "Boss can't be so poor, can he?" Hu Yunfeng blushed and said, "Between us brothers, a small bet is just for fun." "It's just for fun, hee." Finally, residents of Nine Supremes came out. As soon as Yun Yang came out, he felt the covetous eyes of the crowd. Everyone's gaze on the residents of Nine Supremes was complicated and indescribable. The eyes of Beast Trainer Sect, which was next to Residence of Nine Supremes, were even more complicated and inexplicable. Let's welcome the two sect leaders. Hui Yunfeng's voice rang out suddenly. This time, both sects quickly decided on the order of the duels. Well, in fact, it was still Beast Trainer Sect who made the rules, and Residence of Nine Supremes accepted them all. The first match was the pinnacle match, in which both sects would send out their strongest experts. The second match was the match of disciples, the third match was the match of sect leaders, the fourth match was the match of free will, and the fifth match was the match of formations. When they saw the order Qin Ruogu had chosen, everyone knew that Beast Trainer Sect had clearly given up on the last match, or perhaps they might not even be able to start the fourth match. Because in the first three matches, Beast Trainer Sect had at least a 70% chance of winning, which meant that they had a very high chance of winning. In a duel between cultivation experts, even the slightest difference could affect the outcome of the battle. Basically, there was more than a 60% chance of winning, and there was an 80 to 90% chance of winning. I have no objection, Yun Yang agreed without hesitation. In that case, let's get ready. Hui Yunfeng was very satisfied with Yun Yang's straightforwardness. He patted Qin Ruogu on the shoulder and encouraged him with a smile, "Sect leader Qin, I think very highly of Beast Trainer Sect." Qin Ruogu was flattered. "Thank you for your appreciation, Lord Deacon. Beast Trainer Sect will certainly not lose this match." Hui Yunfeng pretended to be calm and said, "Come on. Just do your best." After all, he had a responsibility to bear, so he could not show his partiality too obviously. At least, he had to maintain a fair attitude. At this moment, a bleak old man from Beast Trainer Sect was already standing in the field, waiting for the arrival of his opponent. Chapter 1095. Beside him was a giant wolf with silver eyes. "I'm Meng Xiao from Beast Trainer Sect. Who from the Residence of Nine Supremes would like to spar with me?" Yun Yang waved his hand. Luo Dujiang strode out with his saber in hand. Luo Dujiang from the Residence of Nine Supremes. After Kangwu Union had established its might in the battle, Luo Dujiang's reputation as the #1 expert in the Residence of Nine Supremes other than Yun Yang had resounded through all the sects with lower-class celestial luck banners. No one dared to underestimate him anymore, and no one regarded him as a whetstone anymore. The name of Supreme Saber had spread like wildfire. "I didn't see Supreme Saber's true face that day, but now that I've seen you, you are indeed extraordinary." The old man slowly took out his weapon, which was a silver hook with a peculiar shape. No one knew how many souls had been buried on this silver hook, but as soon as it was taken out, it was shrouded in a faint layer of black, giving off a terrifying aura. Luo Dujiang's expression changed abruptly as he said in a deep voice, "The Soul Reaper." The name Meng Xiao might not be familiar to him, but the famous Soul Reaper in the martial world had left a deep impression on Luo Dujiang. The soul-reaping silver hook, the path to the Nine Serenities. If Luo Dujiang could not remember it when he saw the peculiar-looking silver hook weapon, he would not have been able to survive in the martial world for so many years. "You've earned yourself an undeserved reputation." Meng Xiao's expression was unusually bleak, his white hair fluttering in the wind. "Supreme Saber, please." Luo Dujiang glanced at the silver wolf, who had stood up abruptly as Meng Xiao moved. With a vigilant look on his face, he slowly straightened his saber and said in a deep voice, "Please enlighten me, Senior." As he straightened his saber, his body leaned forward slightly, and as his expression turned solemn, a heavy aura suddenly rose. Both their divine senses were disturbed by the unique influence of this place, causing them to lose their understanding of the enemy's combat strength. However, as they faced each other at such a close distance, Meng Xiao had a slight understanding of Luo Dujiang's strength through the sensing of their auras. His expression changed slightly, and the silver wolf showed a vigilant look almost at the same time. The man and the wolf both felt as if the person they were facing was no longer a simple person, but a heavy mountain, unshakable and unshakable. Luo Dujiang had merely stood there with his saber in his arms, but with this slight movement, he had become flawless, making it difficult for him to land an attack. However, even if there were no flaws, it did not mean that there were no flaws. Since Meng Xiao had such a great reputation, he was naturally a person who knew how to fight. The tip of his foot lightly touched the ground, and his body suddenly swayed. It was as if his body had split into 7 figures that shot out in all directions. Each figure held a soul-stealing silver hook, no different from the original body. The next moment, 8 Meng Xiaos surrounded Luo Dujiang from 8 directions. Flashing with silver light at the same time, they converged into 8 waves of attacks that came whistling down at the same time. Up to this point, Meng Xiao's attacks were already very aggressive and unusual. However, there was a silver wolf next to each of his clones, just like the main body. The 8 silver wolves moved with the waves, leaping into the air and turning into streaks of silver light as they pounced toward Luo Dujiang. As soon as he made his move, it showed that this old man was worthy of being a veteran expert. His attack was extraordinary, and his power shook the heavens. Seeing that the deadly attack was coming, Luo Dujiang dared not to be careless. Storms of the 8 directions. Before his voice had died away, the saber in his hand moved abruptly and twirled around him. Suddenly, a layer of saber energy spread all over his body, shielding him from the wind and rain. Then, his burly body charged forward, completely ignoring the attacks coming from all directions. Luo Dujiang rushed to the edge of the battlefield and slashed down with the saber in his hand, cutting one of the silver wolves in front of him into 2. Then, a crisp clang rang out. It was the sound of the saber and the hook colliding head-on. The clang meant that Luo Dujiang had accurately identified the location of Meng Xiao's real body among the 8 shadows, and he had even targeted the target with 1 strike. Meng Xiao grunted, and the clones around him vanished instantly. However, Luo Dujiang grunted at the same time, because the silver wolf's claw had scratched his right shoulder during the head-on clash with Meng Xiao. His flesh was badly mangled, and he was badly injured. The silver wolf's claw was even sharper than divine weapons. Luo Dujiang had the body of a saint king now, so ordinary blades and swords could not break his defense even if he stood still and was held in the hands of an ordinary warrior. Yet, he was wounded by the wolf's claws. However, it was not only Luo Dujiang's right shoulder that was injured. The silver wolf howled as well. The right front claw it used to attack Luo Dujiang was badly mangled, and all 3 of its nails were broken. This was the counterattack of a Saint King. The mere counterattack of the flesh had caused the silver wolf to be injured at the same time. At this moment, Luo Dujiang spun around abruptly and showed his back to Meng Xiao. At the same time, he raised his saber and slashed at the silver wolf, who was retreating quickly because of the pain. The saber light flashed like lightning, and the killing intent was like a raging wave. Meng Xiao staggered and could not stand steadily because of the blow just now. He was wondering why Luo Dujiang's cultivation base was so high that it seemed to be even higher than his own. When he saw the silver wolf in danger, he did not have time to stabilize his center of gravity, and the silver hook slipped out of his hand and stabbed straight at Luo Dujiang's exposed back. He quickly judged that the silver wolf had exposed its real body because its attack had succeeded. However, Luo Dujiang's real strength was beyond his expectation, and naturally, he was much stronger than the silver wolf. The silver wolf would definitely die with this strike. It turned out that Luo Dujiang's real purpose was to cripple the silver wolf first. Although he had thrown out the silver hook and temporarily restrained Luo Dujiang's killing move, it was only a temporary restraint and could not do anything to Luo Dujiang. He needed to keep up with Luo Dujiang to really solve the silver wolf's crisis. To his surprise, Luo Dujiang laughed and said, "You've been fooled." Then, He spun around abruptly and kicked the purple gold crown backward, hitting the silver wolf's stomach with great precision. The silver wolf howled as its huge body was kicked off the ground, but Luo Dejiang only moved his body sideways. The silver hook flew past him with a trail of blood in it. Although it took away some flesh and blood, it did not seriously injure Luo Dejiang. After kicking the silver wolf away, Luo Dejiang charged forward again and crashed into Meng Xiao like a whirlwind, the edge of his saber gleaming. A helpless look came over Meng Xiao's face at once. He had no other choice at this moment. When he came back to help just now, with his experience, he had naturally thought that it might be Luo Dejiang's deliberate move to lure him to help. There was no reason for Luo Dejiang to be injured at the very beginning. He had tested the attack just now, and Luo Dejiang's mystical chi base could only be stronger than his. It was impossible for such an expert to put himself in an abnormally passive and terrible situation from the very beginning. Since it was an unreasonable situation, it was absolutely impossible. Since it was an unreasonable situation, it could only be that he had other plans. In a fight with someone from the Beast Trainer sect, it was the right thing to do to get rid of their auxiliary spirit beasts first. So, Luo Dejiang's target was the silver wolf from the very beginning? Meng Xiao, who came to this conclusion, felt helpless. If he did not save it, the silver wolf would definitely die, and once it died, he, who was obviously weaker than him, would definitely be defeated. Therefore, he could only choose to save the silver wolf with all his might. However, he did not expect that Luo Dejiang's real purpose in pretending to kill the silver wolf from the very beginning was to lure him into the trap. His target was not the silver wolf from the very beginning, but Meng Xiao himself. Chapter 1096. With a muffled thud, Meng Xiao rolled away, covered in blood. With a roar, the silver wolf that was kicked away by Luo Dejiang pounced at him again, charging at him as if it had no regard for its own life. Growling, it bit Luo Dejiang's left calf. Rings of wind blades emerged from its body and neck, flying out and slicing at Luo Dejiang's body. Luo Dejiang did not seem to notice the attack of the wind blades. He was still striding forward with the silver wolf, which was as big as a calf. The silver wolf bit Luo Dejiang's leg desperately and tried to recoil, but it was still dragged along by Luo Dejiang, leaving long claw marks on the ground. 8 of its phalanges were broken and stained with blood. On the other side, Meng Xiao, who had staggered back after being slashed by Luo Dejiang's saber, had lost his left arm. However, Luo Dejiang's attack did not slow down, and the sharp saber light flashed again. A look of despair flashed in Meng Xiao's eyes as he lost an arm, but his whole body suddenly expanded. At the same time, an extremely explosive and copious amount of profound energy wrapped around him in a rotating manner, and that mass of air was rapidly expanding outwards. Self-detonation. He was going to self-detonate. Luo Dejiang suddenly stopped moving forward and raised his right foot. Bam! 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 In just a flash, he had kicked more than 30 times in a row, turning the silver wolf that was biting his calf into silver ashes. Then, he threw the saber out of his hand and thrust it at Meng Xiao. At this moment, Meng Xiao's body had expanded to the extreme, and he detonated before Luo Dejiang's saber could reach him. The extreme self-detonation of a peak 4th-level saint was extremely powerful, and it was earth-shattering. After kicking the silver wolf away, Luo Dejiang threw the saber away, kicked the ground with the tip of his foot, and shot out like an arrow shot from a bow. The tremendous power of the explosion came at him, and a saber light was the first to fly out. It was the saber Luo Dejiang wanted to counter, and it flew 100 feet away in a flash. The extraordinarily violent force of the explosion even blew Luo Dejiang's feet away. From his thighs to his thighs, his flesh and blood splattered in all directions, making him look miserable. However, his body had already flown 500 feet away. Although both his legs were gone, his life was not in danger. He took a deep breath and let his legs bleed profusely. He took out another saber from his ring and used it to push himself off the ground. His crippled body suddenly flew into the air and shouted, "I won." One of the two sides had fallen while the other survived. No matter how injured the survivor was, he had still won. This was an indisputable fact. Everyone who witnessed this battle was silent for a long time. The entire place was so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. This battle was short, but it was an extremely tragic battle. It was bound to be imprinted in the hearts of the spectators. Just like that, Meng Xiao and the Silver Wolf turned into ashes one after the other. Although Luo Dejiang was still alive, he was seriously injured. If it were not for the fact that he was in the pentagonal celestial realm, he would have been crippled for life and unable to walk. The loser had lost, but the winner had only won a Pyrrhic victory. Self-detonation was also a technique and tactic allowed by the rules. If the opponent self-detonated when he was at a disadvantage and killed the enemy, it would be considered a draw. Because it was a mutual destruction. Meng Xiao's plan was not wrong. From the first time they fought, he knew that Luo Dejiang's strength was higher than what he had shown before, a level higher than his own. Even if he sacrificed his life to elevate his cultivation base to a state stronger than his peak, and even with the help of the Silver Wolf, he was still no match for Luo Dejiang. The reality was obviously very different from the result of the discussion last night. The outcome of the battle was reversed. Therefore, after he failed in his ultimate move, he chose to self-detonate at the critical moment, intending to sacrifice his life and bring Luo Dejiang down with him. For him, winning a draw for the sect was the greatest victory. As long as he self-detonated, with the extreme power of exhausting his life force and forcibly raising his cultivation base, even if Luo Dejiang had reached the level of a Saint King, he would not be able to survive such a self-detonation attack. However, he never expected that Luo Dejiang would trade injury for injury from the very beginning. He would rather injure himself first than secure a victory and cut off one of his arms. In this way, the power of the self-detonation he could unleash was weakened due to the loss of his limbs. In addition, Luo Dejiang reacted appropriately and did not rely on his Saint King cultivation base to withstand the power of the self-detonation. He fled at the first moment with extreme speed. In the end, only his legs were crippled, but his life was not in danger. This round was full of unexpected changes. Just a moment of hesitation and the outcome of the battle would be rewritten. There was still dead silence in the arena. The battle was short, but the fierceness of it was the first time anyone had seen it in their lives. Luo Dejiang's strength had surpassed the peak 4th-tier Saint realm and reached the level of a Saint King. This was already a great shock to everyone present. However, in this battle, the Saint King was seriously injured, the peak 4th-tier Saint self-detonated, and the Beast King Silver Wolf was annihilated in just 5 moves. Whether it was the Silver Wolf, Luo Dejiang, or Meng Xiao, all three of them were extremely determined and did not hesitate at all. At this moment, only a few broken teeth of the Silver Wolf were left in the arena, still shining brightly. Everything had ended. It had come to an end. The loser had turned into powder, and the winner had lost both his legs, not to mention his body that was cut into pieces by the wind blades. Is this still a battle between Saint King level experts? Residents of 9 Supremes, tears glistened in Jiang Luolua's eyes. She wanted to step forward to show her concern, but she managed to hold back. Residents of 9 Supremes wins this match. Hui Yunfeng's eyes turned red when he said that. My spiritual jade. My wealth. Why do I feel like I've fallen into this pit again? Wasn't Luo Dejiang's strength just a peak 4th-tier saint yesterday? How did he become a Saint King today? This doesn't make sense. Has he been hiding his strength from the beginning? How many trump cards does residents of 9 Supremes have? Why are they so powerful? Every time I think I'm going to lose, I'm going to be the one to enjoy myself. The moment the winner was announced, the recovery light came as expected. Luo Dejiang and Meng Xiao appeared in the arena at the same time, and the silver wolf reappeared as well, still covered in silver fur and standing in high spirits. However, its eyes were full of fear when it looked at Luo Dejiang. How can this human be so brutal? He's even more brutal than us mystical beasts. Meng Xiao's eyes were fixed on Luo Dejiang as he asked, "Are you dead?" "Almost," Luo Dejiang replied calmly, "but both my legs were blown away by you, so I'm still alive." Meng Xiao heaved a long sigh. What a pity, what a pity. With a wave of his hand, he left with the silver wolf. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Chapter 219 A Pyrrhic Victory. Page 1/1, bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 1097. The silver wolf turned its head and gave Luo Dejiang a stealthy look as if it wanted to remember this human, then went back to Meng Xiao's side. Qin Ruogu's eyes were wide open as he stared at his uncle master, who was walking toward him. His head was still dizzy, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. He could not believe that his uncle master, who had destroyed his life force, whose overall strength had reached the level of a half-step Saint King, had the full support of a Beast King, and had even self-detonated in the end, was still defeated. It was a nightmare. I've lost. I've done my best, and there's nothing I can do about it, Meng Xiao said faintly. Prepare for the next battle. Qin Ruogu nodded blankly. Meng Xiao sighed and walked back to his seat. Uncle Master. Qin Ruogu blurted out. Meng Xiao did not look back. After this battle, no matter who wins or loses, I'll leave the sect. In my last moments, I'll have a drink with my old friends and have a good look at the world. I won't be in the sect anymore. After I die, someone will naturally send my body back. Uncle Master. Qin Ruogu cried out with his eyes wide open. Even his voice was filled with disbelief. That's all. With his back turned, Meng Xiao waved his hand and said with a faint smile, I've been fighting for the beast-controlling sect for thousands of years. Now, at the last moment, let me relax for a while and take a rest. I want to live my own life for the rest of my life. He laughed in a low, hoarse voice, then turned and left. Qin Ruogu's mind was blank. He could not figure out what had happened to his uncle master. Didn't he just lose the expected victory? I didn't say anything unpleasant, so why does it seem like I'm disheartened? Could it be that the defeat this time was such a huge blow to martial granduncle? The sect leader of Beast Trainer sect was really speechless. Even now, he still had not figured out why his uncle master had left so dejectedly. The second match is the match of disciples. A middle-aged disciple of Beast Trainer sect, who was in his 30s, rose to his feet, clutched his spirit beast ring, bowed, and said, Master, this disciple will fight. All right. The disciple walked quickly out of the room. On the Residence of Nine Supreme side, Bai Yexing took a step forward and said, Master, this disciple requests to fight. Just as Yun Xiaofan was about to speak, Bai Yexing said, Eldest senior sister, you've already fought one before. Leave this one to junior brother. Yun Xiaofan rolled her eyes and said angrily, Eldest senior brother and eldest senior sister should fight in the disciple battle. Yun Yang chuckled. Yi Xing will fight in this battle. Bai Yexing bowed and said, Thank you, sect leader. This battle will not be easy, but as long as you remember what I said, you can still win. Yun Yang looked at Bai Yexing and said, Don't be careless, because in my opinion, this battle may be the one that Residence of Nine Supremes has the least chance of winning. In this battle, steadiness and ferocity are more important than combat strength. Bai Yexing pursed his lips and said, I understand. I will do my best and not bring shame to the sect. Go. Yes. Clad in a white robe, Bai Yeshing picked up his sword and walked out of the arena at a slow speed. As he walked, he pondered the situation of the battle. There was no doubt that this battle was extremely crucial. His opponent was assisted by a spirit beast, and his strength was most likely about the same as his. So, how could he win? Although Yun Xiaoxin's strength was the strongest among all the disciples, she was a girl after all, and she was too young. As long as the opponent's spirit beast was a little fierce, she would inevitably be mentally weaker. Moreover, as the eldest senior sister of a sect, she could not be defeated. And I, Bai Yeshing, will definitely get through this. I'll do my best in this battle. Even if I can't win, I'll win by any means, even if I have to risk my life. I believe I can still fight for a chance to perish together with my opponent. No, an idea flashed in Bai Yeshing's mind. I can't perish together with my opponent. This battle is different from other battles. The attitude of the participants toward death is far different from that of other battles. They don't have to be afraid, because they can be resurrected after the battle. Who would really be afraid of death? So, if I have this idea from the beginning, I've already prepared myself that I won't win. At most, I'll end up with a draw, and I'll already be mentally defeated. Then, should I try another way of fighting? What is the true meaning of Master's repeated advice of steadiness and fierceness? Bai Yeshing pursed his lips and quickened his pace. If the battle between Luo Dujiang and Meng Xiao was fierce and quick, then Bai Yeshing's battle sent chills down everyone's spines and made them shudder. There was actually someone in the world who used such an extreme way to fight. When residents of 9 Supremes fought Thousand Mountains sect in the Battle of Formations, Bai Yeshing was one of the disciples who participated in the battle. His strength was displayed to the fullest, and although it amazed everyone, it also revealed his true strength. Therefore, Beast Trainer sect had specially sent a disciple whose cultivation base had reached the realm of Venerable to fight him. The mystical beast of Beast Trainer sect, on the other hand, had surpassed the 9th grade. It was huge, ferocious, and frightening. Under the combined combat strength of these two opponents, Bai Yeshing was at a complete disadvantage almost from the beginning. Anyone present could see the situation. It was clear who was stronger and who was weaker, and it would be difficult to turn the situation around. However, Bai Yeshing had shown an indescribable performance since the beginning of the battle. As soon as the battle began, no one knew what he had done, but he merely showed his hand, but the opponent's ferocious look, which was about to devour him, suddenly disappeared. Then, he froze for a moment, and then flew away as if he was chasing something. It was a pity that the crowd was too far away, and they did not see what it was that could distract the mystical beast. But, with the speed of the mystical beast, no matter what it was chasing, the time it could buy was at most a snap of its fingers. However, it was at this very moment that Bai Yeshing burst out with unprecedented speed and bolted forward. He did not even look at the sharp sword that was aimed at his heart, but thrust it at his opponent's throat. Knowing that he had the upper hand, his opponent was not willing to die together with him. Hastily, he changed his move to block, and at the same time, he wanted to buy himself a moment and wait for the mystical beast to return. The disciple of Beast Trainer sect had a good plan. But Bai Yeshing's next move was unexpected. The moment the saber and sword collided, Bai Yeshing's sword suddenly flew out of his hand. No one knew whether it was blocked by his opponent's weapon or it let go of its own accord, but as soon as the battle began, Bai Yeshing was empty-handed. Genius in a second. Remember my address. Mobile version. Chapter 1098. Although the disciple of Beast Trainer sect did not know what was going on, he felt that it was not a bad thing. His opponent had been injured and thrown away his weapon. Was this still a bad thing for him? He could only be more confident. He hurriedly circulated his mystical chi to strike again. But just now, he had first attacked the enemy's vital parts, then switched to a defensive stance, mustering all his strength to parry Bai Yexing's fierce attack, but somehow, his sword had been knocked away. Now, when he tried to circulate his mystical qi again, he was shocked to find that the strength he had exerted so many times, especially when he was defending with all his might just now, was a little disordered. It would only take him half a breath at most to recover from the disorder. However, it was during this time that Bai Yexing lunged forward like a madman, wrapped his arms around the young man's neck, and grabbed him by the neck with both hands. This was no longer a martial art move, but a pure gangster's way of fighting. It was a close combat. It was not only unexpected, but also unexpected. The opponent, a venerable expert, was suddenly hugged, and it was difficult for him to move or break free. The opponent reacted quickly, and the next moment, he stabbed his sword into Bai Yexing's body. Unfortunately, his hands were restrained, and the sword did not hit his vital parts, so Bai Yexing did not dodge. Instead, he mustered all his strength to continue strangling his opponent's neck. At the same time, the sword that had been knocked away just now returned to him. How could Bai Yexing's sword be knocked away for no reason? This was the trump card he had prepared. The sword flew back from the man's back like a bolt of lightning and fell silently like a meteor. The man did not know, but the onlookers exclaimed in unison. This was too dangerous. Then, Bai Yexing used all his strength to keep his opponent motionless, causing both of them to be pierced by the sword that had been summoned back. In the battlefield of the Celestial Luck Banner competition, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the sword that had been summoned back came down from above, pierced through the opponent's chest, and then stabbed into Bai Yexing's lower abdomen. The opponent screamed, his eyes wide. Bai Yexing's face was expressionless, as indifferent as when he first appeared. His eyes were calm. It was as if he wasn't injured at all. He didn't stop there. He twisted his body without saying a word. He didn't hesitate to use his own body as a medium to break the sword that was stabbed into his body and his own sword that was stabbed into his body. Use your own bones to break the two swords. Just saying that scene was extremely tragic and horrifying wasn't enough to describe it. It was practically a restricted level. At this moment, the man screamed and struggled desperately to separate himself from Bai Yexing. He staggered backward, looking at Bai Yexing as if he was looking at a ghost. In this world, there are actually people who fight like this. He didn't treat himself as a human at all. However, what was even more shocking was what happened next. Bai Yexing was still holding on, and he was smiling calmly at her. This kind of smile, however, was even more frightening than gnashing his teeth. The man's heart shuddered, but Bai Yexing was already charging at him. The man raised the broken sword and slashed madly, cutting Bai Yexing's flesh and sending bone fragments flying in all directions. But Bai Yexing was unmoved, and his expression didn't even change. With a swoosh, he reached out and pulled out the two parts of the broken sword from his body, then turned and stabbed them into the enemy's heart. The man let out another inhuman howl, trying to fight back. But Bai Yexing opened his mouth, rushed forward, and bit the man's throat with his white teeth. The man was still holding his broken sword, and he kept slashing at Bai Yexing, trying to force him away. But Bai Yexing held on fearlessly, refusing to let go no matter what, and kept biting off the man's neck. Blood gushed out of the man's throat as he stared at Bai Yexing with fear in his eyes. Finally, his body went limp and fell to the ground. All of this happened in the time it takes for a spark to fly off a piece of flint. From start to finish, only a dozen breaths of time had passed. He attacked. It was an extreme tactic of perishing together with the enemy. He let go of the sword and added a spinning force to it, causing it to be knocked away. When the enemy's mystical qi was in a state of disorder, he would pounce on it, using a technique that surpassed martial arts to hold the enemy still, allowing him to be injured one after another. Then, he would hold on until the sword flew back and pierced through the enemy as well as himself, then he would use his own flesh and bones to break the sword and stab the enemy at close range. The final killing move was to bite the enemy's throat until it was broken. This series of changes happened right in front of everyone's eyes, and it was completely out of everyone's expectations. It was filled with blood and extreme. It was only at this moment that the profound beast that had flown out inexplicably rushed back. It had only been a few dozen breaths of time since it had left. And in that short time, its master was dead. Although the disciple of beast trainer sect was dead, Bai Yexing's condition was not much better. Not only was he bathed in blood, but he had lost an arm, which was the result of the disciple's counterattack. His remaining right hand, however, had produced a sword from his spatial ring. Holding it in his hand, he charged at the mystical beast without saying a word. Bai Yexing knew that he was seriously injured and could not fight again, but such an extreme tactic was to kill the disciple of beast trainer sect as soon as possible and then fight the mystical beast again, avoiding the situation where he was attacked from both sides. Now that his plan had been achieved, how could he not muster up any more strength and fight desperately for victory? The mystical beast, which had just gotten the upper hand, was shocked to see its master dead. Shocked, it leaned to the side, dodged the sword, and then bit down on half of Bai Yexing's body. But it was a move that Bai Yexing had deliberately given up. Bai Yexing had his own assessment of his current situation. He knew that he could no longer fight the mystical beast for a long time, so he had to take the risk. So, he let his body creak under the beast's bite. Greedy for victory, he swung the sword in his right hand and cut off both of the mystical beast's legs, then stabbed it into its chest. The mystical beast roared and tried to flee, but with its legs broken, it could not move as fast as usual. Bai Yexing rushed up to it and slashed again with the sword. The beast's ferocity exploded, and it counterattacked, biting off Bai Yexing's right hand, but the sword had also cut off one of its front claws. At this point in the battle, Bai Yexing should have lost both of his arms, but as the mystical beast was tearing at him, he did not give up. Using the same method, he twisted his head and bit down on the mystical beast's throat. At the same time, he kicked and kneed the wounds on the mystical beast's body with his legs. The mystical beast, whose ferocity had been stimulated, was shocked by Bai Yexing's crazy behavior and subdued. Although it managed to break free from Bai Yexing's grip, it hopped desperately away from him with only one front leg, not daring to come any closer. Its eyes were filled with fear. It had never seen such a ferocious human being before. How can he be so terrifying? Who is the mystical beast? Chapter 1099. At this point, Bai Yexing's body was basically covered in wounds. Both of his arms were gone, and blood was gushing out of them. The loss of blood alone was enough to kill a man, but he did not make a sound from beginning to end. Instead, he continued to press fiercely toward the mystical beast. The mystical beast whimpered and dodged, but it only had one front leg left, so it could not jump easily. Gradually, Bai Yexing forced it into a corner, and finally, it began to fight back. With both of his arms crippled, Bai Yexing could no longer use his mystical energy to attack, but he desperately rushed forward and sent his body into the mystical beast's mouth. Then, he tilted his head and bit the beast with his bloody teeth. "Come and bite me. I'll bite you." Then, he continued to kick with his legs. This time, the mystical beast was really frightened. With the last of its strength, it flung Bai Yexing to one side, then retreated to the other side, where it lay on the ground, shivering. The fear in its eyes grew stronger, and it could not be concealed. It wanted nothing more than to escape from the battlefield. Bai Yexing got to his feet again and rushed toward the mystical beast. Everyone could see that he was now an arrow at the end of its flight, and probably only had one last breath left. Even the current charge was probably just a pose. Although the mystical beast was also seriously injured, it still had the strength to fight back. The fact that it could fling Bai Yeshing away just now had already proved this. Now, all it needed was a charge to completely knock Bai Yeshing down. However, the black lion mystical beast, which had always been known for its ferocity and violence, could only whimper now. As Bai Yeshing approached again, it quickly turned around, tucked its tail between its legs, and scrambled away from the battlefield with its only leg. Everyone sighed, but it was not a sigh of pity, but an appreciation from the bottom of their hearts. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Residence of Nine Supremes was bound to lose in this battle, and there was no chance of winning. But it was this impossible battle that had allowed this disciple to change the outcome of the battle. He had forcibly reversed fate. Bai Yeshing seemed to want to perish together with his opponent, but his opponent knew that he had the upper hand and was naturally unwilling to fight him. From the very beginning, it was entirely Bai Yeshing who dominated the battle. You want to hide? I'll fight harder. Forcing you to fight. He was risking his life in the most extreme way. He was really risking his life to fight, to gamble, to try. In this battle, Bai Yeshing had truly engraved the word ferocious into his bones. Every move, every style, every movement was a desperate struggle. Just the sound of death itself was enough to steal people's hearts and souls, and no one could compare. It was also because of this fierceness that he completely suppressed the other party in terms of aura. In a battle between two people, one's cultivation base was important, but so was one's fighting spirit and momentum. Once one's momentum was at a disadvantage, one would almost certainly lose. Bai Yeshing, on the other hand, persisted in carrying out his fierceness, completely suppressing his enemy and killing him. Again, if he could not kill his opponent before the mystical beasts returned, he would be attacked from both sides, and there would be no room for negotiation. Then, he turned to fight the mystical beasts. Given his physical condition at that time, it could be said that he had no chance of winning, but he still persisted in the same tactics, continuing to use his fierceness to the extreme, exchanging blows with the mystical beasts. Relying on the fact that he was 2 grades higher than the mystical beasts, he used his body, which was on the verge of collapse, to launch the most extreme and bloody hand-to-hand combat with the mystical beasts. Once again, it was a competition of fierceness, and viciousness. This fierce momentum scared the mystical beasts so much that they did not dare to fight after being seriously injured, and they abandoned the battle and fled. Although mystical beasts were known for their strength, they were still beasts, and they could not escape the instinctive fear of stronger and more vicious existences. And the foundation of this victory was no longer a battle between ordinary warriors, it was purely a battle of courage and mentality. Against people, it was psychological warfare. Against mystical beasts, it was psychological warfare. If he could kill them, he would kill them as soon as possible, and if he couldn't, even if he couldn't kill them, he would scare them to death. Or, it could be said that Bai Yeshing's opponents and his opponent's mystical beasts were completely defeated by his extreme tactics. From the beginning to the end, from the moment Bai Yeshing fought until now, Bai Yeshing had never spoken a word. There was not a single scream or grunt. Even his expression hadn't changed at all. His eyes had always been calm and indifferent. It was as if the wounds on his body were all on someone else's body, and he did not feel anything at all. Even now, when the outcome of the battle had been decided, he still did not speak. He just stood there, waiting for the result to be announced. His indifference sent a chill down the spines of all the onlookers. He was not afraid of a ferocious enemy, nor was he afraid of a monstrous aura, nor was he afraid of any sinister spirits. However, the ferocity hidden under this infinite calmness was enough to send a chill down anyone's spine. Residence of Nine Supremes wins. When Bai Yeshing finally heard the words, he breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he could not move, not even a little finger. He was out of breath, covered in wounds, and had lost a lot of blood. With so many negative statuses on him, it was already a miracle that he could hold on until now. Everyone saw that his body, which was as straight as a spear, did not move at all. There was only a gratified smile on his blood-stained face, and he murmured something silently. Then, his body froze. Yun Yang's heart skipped a beat. Bai Yexing's last words were, "Residence of 9 Supremes never stops." All the onlookers, including Qin Ruogu, were convinced of their defeat and had nothing to say. With such a disciple, it would be strange if the opponent did not win. Everyone had one life, the same bones, the same flesh and blood, the same internal organs, the same brain, and the same thoughts. If one did not dare to fight, but the opponent did, then one would lose. What was the purpose of fighting for the celestial fortune? It was nothing more than to fight for one's pride. There was nothing else. Since the opponent dared to die and risk his life, he was destined to have more chances than the onlookers. It was because the onlookers did not dare to. Qin Ruogu heaved a long sigh, then turned to Yun Yang and said, "Sect leader Yun, Beast Trainer Sect is convinced of our defeat in this match." Yun Yang was visibly moved as he said softly, "I wanted to say thank you for letting me win, but at this moment, it's hard for me to say such courteous words. We've won this battle gloriously, so I won't be so courteous anymore." Qin Ruogu sighed enviously and said, "Sect leader Yun, you should be proud and glorious. With such an excellent disciple, Residence of 9 Supremes deserves the celestial luck banner." At this moment, even Hui Yunfeng, who was on the high platform, had a look of mixed emotions on his face. He was so shocked by the match that he could not recover from it for a long time, and he even forgot the supreme-grade spiritual jade that he had been worrying about. It's worth it to lose the supreme-grade spiritual jade to such a person. Chapter 1100. With a flash of light, the 2 men and 1 beast in the field recovered. Bai Yexing had returned to his snow-white robe. His body had been reconstructed, and his condition was completely restored. His face was calm, and his eyes were calm as he stood there. On the other side, the disciples of Beast Trainer Sect looked at him as if they were looking at a ferocious ghost, their eyes full of horror. As for the mystical beast, it dared not look at Bai Yexing at all. When it glanced at him, it whimpered and hurriedly lowered its head, not daring to look at the calm face again. Bai Yexing's battle had frightened both the man and the beast out of their wits, and they were terrified. "Sect leader, master, uncle masters, this disciple has accomplished his mission and won the match." Bai Yexing came up to report. Kong Luoyue looked gratified and proud, while the others were full of praise. "Not bad. Not bad at all." Yun Yang praised heavily. "Yexing, your performance in this battle is too outstanding. No one in the first generation of disciples can be better than you in this battle alone. Luoyue, you didn't take this disciple for nothing." Kong Luoyue smiled and said modestly, "Don't praise him like that, boss. Yexing still needs to improve. Don't spoil him." Shi Wuchen and the others looked askance at Kong Luoyue, suddenly wanting to beat him up. Could he be any more pretentious and smug? Yun Yang smiled. "I'm not praising him just because he won the match. It's because this battle should have been Xiaoxin's. Even if Xiaoxin wasn't the one to fight, would have chosen Mingxiu." In addition to clearly predicting the difference in strength between the 2 sides, Yexing also knew Xiaoxin's natural weakness as a girl. If he really fought with her in this fierce battle, winning or losing is not important, but mental trauma is inevitable. That's why he stepped forward. This is especially praiseworthy. Yun Yang glanced at Yun Xiaoxin and said, "In terms of the cultivation base of all the disciples, although Xiaoxin defeated Yexing in the match, if she were the one to fight, she would definitely lose." On this point, everyone nodded their heads repeatedly, and no one questioned it. Even Yun Xiaoxin, who had always been proud and arrogant, lowered her head. She knew that her master was right. If she were the one to fight in this battle, not only did he lose, but he was afraid that he would fall into the fear of being devoured by the vicious beasts for a long time. Just by looking at everything that happened in the arena from the sidelines, that kind of ruthlessness was something that he definitely could not bring out. Even if he did, he would definitely not have such an imposing manner. And the victory of this battle lay in this momentum. Because no matter what, his strength could not compare to the other party. Sun Mingxiu was also calculating in his heart. If he were to fight this battle, no matter how calm and careful he was, at most, he would only be able to achieve a result where both sides would suffer. To win was absolutely impossible. Bai Yexing was still indifferent as he said, "Sect leader, you flatter me." Yun Yang smiled and gave Bai Yexing a deep look. Bai Yexing did not negotiate with the mystical beasts, nor did he use the bead he had given him. Instead, he had found another way to win the battle. His quick-wittedness was also worthy of praise. That was because in the disciple battle, if he were to use the pearl to tempt such a combination of Xian beasts, it would probably not be of much use. The battle had been over for a while, but the crowd had yet to recover from the shock. A figure had been lingering in front of them, fighting and struggling with all the means and strength he had. Even when his bones were shattered, he did not care at all, and his expression remained indifferent from the beginning to the end. Indifference. Indifference. Whether it was to people, to things, to himself, or to everything in this world, he did not care at all. It was common knowledge that basically everyone could accept the way of death like being beheaded with a single slash. After all, one would no longer feel anything after the slash, so it did not matter whether one accepted it or not. However, in the process of fighting, he had beaten his own body to a pulp, broken more than 50% of his bones, and not a single part of his body was not injured, but he still persisted in fighting without making a sound. Such a ruthless person was rare in the world. Death was the end of everything. These words weren't just empty words. Once one became impermanent, everything would be over. However, if one's body and mind were to fight in such an environment of unbearable pain, that was secondary. Who could guarantee that the expression on one's face wouldn't change? Therefore, everyone looked at Bai Yexing with inexplicable admiration in their eyes, including many high-level warriors. At this moment, everyone knew that there was a real man of steel in this world. This person, even if you caught him, no matter how you tortured him, even if you smashed all of his bones into pieces, he would definitely not say a word. Everyone was sure that Bai Yexing could do this. There was no doubt about it. After a long while, Hui Yunfeng cleared his throat and said, "The next match is the match of sect leaders." Yun Yang and Qin Ruogu exchanged a glance and rose to their feet at the same time. Sect leader Yun, Beast Trainer sect has our own unique means. Although they are not worthy of the Fang clan's attention, they do have some power. You must be careful, said Qin Ruogu. Yun Yang smiled faintly and said casually, Sect leader Qin, the residence of 9 Supremes has never lacked trump cards. This has been reflected in the Celestial Luck Banner contest. We've been performing all the time, and it seems like we've never been surpassed. Qin Ruogu chuckled, flicked his sleeve, and was the first to leave the arena. Yun Yang's purple robe fluttered in the wind as if he was strolling on clouds as he followed behind. The two of them left the arena together. One had a solemn face, gray hair, and a grave look in his eyes, and it was obvious that he was about to do something important. The other, on the other hand, looked relaxed, tall and slender, and strolled leisurely as if he was going for an outing. This was already an abnormally obvious contrast. Even the people of Beast Trainer sect could see it, but Qin Ruogu, the sect leader, did not notice it at all. Perhaps he was too immersed in the situation to notice it. Or perhaps he was too concerned about the match. After all, it was related to the last face of Beast Trainer sect, and he could not afford to lose it. He did not have the energy to worry about other trivial matters. In fact, the only thing that concerned him at the moment was Yun Yang's amazing strength, which was at least one level stronger than his, and it was not impossible for him to be 2 or 3 levels stronger. After all, the strength that Luo Dujiang had shown was stronger than the last time. Who knew if Yun Yang, the leader of Residents of 9 Supremes, did not hide his true strength? In that case, the only thing he could rely on was the divine beast of his sect. Speaking of this divine beast of the Imperial Beast sect, it probably had a great background. It had already existed in the Imperial Beast sect for 4,300 years. Just this age alone was quite impressive. However, it was true that the divine beast was strong, but its temperament was eccentric, making it very difficult to control. If it were not for the fact that he had no other choice, Qin Ruogu really did not want to use this trump card that he had been hiding for a long time. The fate of the whole sect is on you. Please don't make any more trouble. Qin Ruogu prayed in his heart. Chapter 1101. Thinking of the exchange with the divine beast last night, Qin Ruogu felt more or less relieved. The two men stood still in the field. They were facing each other, but not as close as they were in the previous battles. After Qin Ruogu stood still, he instinctively felt that it was not safe enough, so he moved back another 200 feet. Now, there was a distance of 400 feet between them. The distance surprised Yun Yang. Sect leader Qin, are you not ready? As he spoke, he could not help taking a step forward. Wait. Qin Ruogu stopped him from getting any closer and explained amiably, my role in this battle is only to supervise the battle. In other words, as long as you can defeat my mystical beast, it will be your victory. Oh? Yun Yang asked. Mystical beast? Do I need to fight a mystical beast? Almost subconsciously, he dispersed his mystical qi and activated the endless divine art, which was rarely used in actual combat. An ancient bracelet appeared in Qin Ruogu's hand, and he gently stroked it. Then, he began to murmur something. A bright light flashed, and a mountain suddenly appeared in the field. It was a black mountain. Everyone was startled, and when they looked carefully, they found that the black mountain was actually a bear. It was a huge black bear. There was not a single strand of hair on its body, and its whole body was pitch black. Its body was as tall as 250 feet, and its paw alone was almost the size of an ordinary house. Standing there, it looked like a small hill. When the black bear appeared in the field, it raised its huge paw and rubbed its eyes in a daze, then opened its mouth, revealing its fangs that were about 10 feet long, and yawned. Then, it turned its head and gave Qin Ruogu a dissatisfied look. Obviously, this bear was not fully awake yet. Sacred King Bear, our opponent is right in front of you now. Qin Ruogu bowed and said, you only need to defeat him, and will win. After that, you can sleep as long as you want. At least, we won't disturb you for a long time. The black bear dug his nose and scooped out a blob of mucus the size of a wash basin. He flicked it away and tilted his head to look at Yun Yang before he proceeded to dig his other nostril. Then, another lump of glistening yellow stuff bounced out, and he raised his head and sneezed. He sniffed and finally faced Yun Yang with a snort when he felt that he was satisfied and comfortable. Yun Yang had already cultivated the endless divine art to its maximum, standing on the other side with a smile on his face as he looked at the black bear. With Yun Yang's fondness for beauty, he was naturally a little obsessed with cleanliness. However, facing such a sloppy black bear, his eyes were filled with joy. It was because deep in Yun Yang's eyes, there was a deep nostalgia, he remembered. Not too long ago, that adorable little bear. Now, I don't know how the two of you are in that forest. If there's a chance, I'll definitely visit you guys in the future. You guys must wait for me, wait for my return. The black bear snorted again, then suddenly opened its mouth and spoke in a thunderous voice, little fellow, are you the enemy of Beast Trainer sect? Many sects who did not know what was going on, including Yun Yang and his companions, were all startled by the loud voice, without exception. F***CK. This bear can actually speak human language? Is it still King Bear? Is it a man in a bear's skin in disguise? But on second thought, he still felt that it was not right. How could a man have such a body size? After a moment of shock, Yun Yang was overjoyed. It can speak? That's even easier. Compared to his cultivation base, strength, and all his trump cards, Yun Yang was quite confident in his ability to talk. As long as he used it well, it meant that he could communicate well, and he could defeat any enemy with just his mouth. The black bear stared at Yun Yang with its huge eyes, obviously not knowing why the kid in front of it was so happy. Shouldn't you be peeing your pants when you see me? Yun Yang smiled. This battle of the celestial luck banners is just a difference of ranking between sects with celestial luck banners. How can we be considered enemies? Since Senior Bear King has come out, why don't you enjoy the scenery and have some fun outside? If you can make friends along the way, it'll be good for both you and others. The black bear snorted and looked at the little fellow in purple. The more it looked at him, the more it felt like, this little fellow. Why does it feel so familiar? It smells so good. The black bear was not the only one who had this feeling. In the past, the 1,000 illusion monkey that Ji Lingxi had carefully served for more than 3 months, the mystical beasts that the 4 young masters had asked for training, ready, the Niello bear, the Moir python, and even the 5 whiteys that had been in Yun Yang's memory. Too many mystical beasts had fallen for this feeling. Yes, there was also the mystical beast that had been ignored in the previous battle. If it had not left for some reason at the beginning of the battle, Bai Yexing would still not have been able to escape the predicament of being attacked from both sides. No matter how fierce and wild he was, there was always a limit to his strength, and he would still be defeated. Could the black bear be an exception now? Swoosh, 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 the black bear could not help sniffling a few more times, the suspicion in his eyes growing stronger. Yun Yang laughed and floated up to a distance of 200 feet away. Standing only 30 to 40 feet away from the bear, he raised his head and said, "Your Excellency Bear King is truly awe-inspiring and admirable." The black panda's face immediately revealed a proud look, and he said very reservedly, "Just so. He could not help sniffing again. What is that smell? No, no, no. This is the first time I've seen such a mighty Bear King. I was really shocked when I saw it just now. The so-called top-notch mystical beasts are at most like you, Senior," Yun Yang said sincerely. Receiving Yun Yang's close greeting and being flattered by a certain someone, the King of Bear felt more and more comfortable. His eyes narrowed as he said, "Actually, although this King of Bear is ferocious and has a profound cultivation base, what's rarer is that this King of Bear's handsomeness is rare." Yun Yang looked at the black mountain of flesh and used the limits of his imagination to take another look, but he still could not see how this big fellow was handsome. He laughed and said, "Senior is still too modest. At least among the many bear brothers I've seen, no one is more handsome than Senior Bear King. It's rare to see someone who's even 60 to 70% as handsome as Senior. Well, I haven't seen many beasts of the bear family. Compared to the mini Niello bear and the even more stupid myriad gold bear, the black bear king in front of me is indeed more outstanding." He was probably lying, at least Yun Yang thought so. The black bear burst into laughter. His voice was so deep that it made the ears of the onlookers tremble. Qin Ruogu grew anxious and cried out, "Bear Saint King, this man in front of you is your opponent." The black bear snorted discontentedly and looked down at Yun Yang. The more he looked at him, the more he felt that this man was clearly a good man. Not only did he have a keen eye, but he also spoke the truth. It was a real and indescribable sense of intimacy. It was so intimate that he almost thought that this man was his blood brother. What was going on? You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.